Business.
Yep, you ready? Walton County TDC meeting begins, and it's 9 a.m. Let's stand. Before we stand, make sure you turn off all your, turn off or silence your phones. Thank you. Let's stand for the invocation and the pledge. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us be here today to work together to perfect our programs and work with the tourism and the community. Lord, we ask this in your name. Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do we have any public comments before we begin? Public comments before we begin? Mr. Davis, would you like to come up and speak this morning?
Well, this is great. Is this where I'm supposed to be?
This is
Okay.
public comment.
I'm Robert Davis, the founder of Seaside.
Okay, Mr. Davis, can I hold off 1 minute? I apologize. We got to have a quorum call first.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right, my bad. Let's do a Pam Avery,
Here.
Gary Brillmeyer,
Here.
Jim Richard,
Here.
Brian Christensen,
Here.
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Richard Bellman,
Present.
Matt Hagan,
Here.
Mark Hogden,
Here.
and Tim Norris. We have a quorum. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, any public comments? Any comments from the public?
Okay. Now
Sorry about that.
yeah. I'm Robert Davis, the founder of Seaside, and hang out with Pam a good deal of the time. I'm here basically to talk about transportation and South Walton, but I'll preface by pleading with you guys to think about your role as part of a larger economic development program to use tourism as a means to an end of better jobs for our citizens, particularly our young people, by making the visitor experience so great that a small number of our visitors want to move down here, bring their businesses in technology and other good-paying work down to South Walton, and to relieve us of the burden of having to deal with peak tourist loads, which of course result in traffic congestion during spring break and during summer. That traffic congestion and other forms of overloading the tourist economy also run a danger of destroying the very component of the economy for which you are responsible. And we did this, what I think was pretty wonderful economic development strategy 25 years ago with the South Walton Conservation Development Plan. And the basic strategy was use tourism to bring people here, but recognize that if you keep adding more and more warm bodies, you're going to make South Walton one of those places that nobody goes to anymore because it's too crowded. That's a Yogi Berra quote, one of those wonderful oxymorons. And I think that we're close to the tipping point. Certainly, we see parts of 30A becoming linear parking lots, parts of much of 98 becoming that way. And I'm looking forward in a few months to coming back here and making a presentation about this pilot project called 30A Mobility, which we're hoping will begin to decongest 30A and 331 and 98, offer alternatives to getting here for commuters who are stuck in traffic and spending a lot of money on gas, as well as to tourists who we think can be seduced out of their individual cars into cool rides. So I hope that we will be able to present some things that are much cooler than the very standard vehicles that John Finch is going to be running this summer, but we have what we have, and we ought to make do with what John can offer us, as long as it really serves as transportation and not just a thing that will get you from a few places that are willing to pay to play to another few places. And that's really the thing I would urge you and Sunshine Shuttle to work on, to make sure that people who want to go from one place to another and not get in their cars are able to do so. So I think that's going to be one of the really key solutions to making the visitor experience a lot more pleasant, a lot more enticing than it is now. Anybody who has time, next week we have a workshop on the 10th, 11th, and 12th in Seaside in the Assembly Hall, and we'll actually be introducing some of the cool rides, an Ollie car, which is self-driving, a little funny-looking cube, and a couple of others that are manufacturers who want to be part of this pilot project. We're very excited about the interest that people have in participating in this project. A lot of manufacturers, a lot of engineering firms are working on this, and we're getting good support from Florida's legislature and Florida DOT, because we want Florida to be one of the real leaders in the new forms of mobility. In the meantime, I hope that the TDC will support alternative forms of mobility and try to decongest the traffic problems that we're experiencing now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Okay, anybody else make a comment? All right, let's move on to approval of minutes.
So moved.
Okay. We got a motion to move. We got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, financial report. Mr. Jason.
Good morning, Commissioner and council members. I'm Jason Cushar, the Director of Administration for the TDC, and I've got a few things to go over. Included in your packet are the financial reports for November all the way to January. And then the printed copy that you have in front of you is February. We just got those numbers in 2 days ago, so we were able to put together the calculation. Yes, sir.
Can I make a comment on that
Yes.
financial spreadsheet?
Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we have two 2014s on here, fiscal years. Is the right-hand column supposed to be 13?
What it was in 2014, they had 4.5% bed tax collection, and then it was changed to 4%.
Oh, okay.
So they maintain both of those so that you
Gotcha.
just have that coverage. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And see, our very first slide you see is January's reserve report. January and February's happened in between our last meeting and now. Excuse me, my glasses are. That is, you see the comparison right now is the TDC revenue and reserve report. So you see what the TDT collection was for December, also to January, and then you also see our reserve balance at the bottom corner. And we've 14.47 is the is what we've got to date as far as our projected revenue on the TDT. But we're getting ready to roll into our heavier months next. February financial reports are in. The largest category that we have spending so far is shoulder season, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of times we pay for a lot of that in advance. So that's your That's the largest section in that section. And on the reserve revenue report again, it has January and February's numbers. This is your newest printed copy at the front, which will again show you the comparison between January and February, the total, the actual revenue received so far this year at $3,633,797 so far year to date. On the TDT report, which is really one of the more user-friendly spreadsheet, it's got an over coverage of everything year to date. For February, we were at 575,917. That's 6.09% up year to date from last year of that month. If you look at January and February together between FY16 and 17, it's about a 10% margin of increase. So if that trend continues, then you'll look at the total at the bottom. We have a 13.57% year to date over all the months that we've had so far. The increase, one of the only categories that we had a little bit of an increase was, and you'll see it in your February report, and if you guys have any questions, I'll also email out the February report so you guys can look at it in detail for anything. The reason why we included all of the financial reports from November to February is so I could request the council to accept and approve the financials from November to February this year. And Jay will have more updates on the FY18 budget. We're starting that process now with the county, so we'll be making some plans in the very near future to meet with all of you guys.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's really directed to the council or you, but when we get our packet agenda to review,
Yes, sir.
we have the financials in there, but with one less month, and then it's updated. I mean, does it make sense to just not have it in the agenda packet? Have it as a topic, but then we receive our financials to review it, because once we review it in here, it's different.
Yes, sir.
When we get here.
Yes, sir. Yes,
No.
that's, and,
Is
and
there some kind of policy or rule that I'm not aware of?
No, I mean, it's just convenience of having the past and then we gather the current. On the
it
day
is.
of
I
the
think
meeting.
that was the way it was done. You know, before, prior to, is a lot of times you get those numbers for that last month at the very beginning of the month, and then we have our meeting, you know, within 2 or 3 days prior to, so it doesn't give time to update it and slide it into. But what we can do is we can, like per se, we have January and February. What we can do is just include January, and then when February is done completely, I can email it to you right away, and then print it and have it here, so that way you don't have an unofficial copy and an official copy also to have to deal with. If that would help the
Yeah.
council, I'll be more than willing to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
That's fine.
Yeah, because the meetings are every other month. It's always nice to have as much up-to-date info as you can, so I was happy to kind of at least see up through January, knowing that maybe February was going to arrive hot off the press today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you can email it, sure, that'd be great.
I can, yes, sir. I can email it. I can email it unofficial and unofficial as soon as I get the numbers in from the TDT collection office.
Yes,
sir. Okay.
Thanks,
More
Jason.
questions? Thank you.
All right.
And
So we need a motion for approval of the financial report for January, December, and November. December's 2016, November 2016, and January 2017.
and February also, sir.
And February also, that's correct.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Okay. New business. Ms. PJ.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, councilors. My name is PJ Lohman. I'm the TDC Director of Marketing, and I'm here to chat with you this morning about two different transportation opportunities. Originally, we were approached by Sunshine Shuttle, Mr. John Finch, and discussion about a transportation program for the South Walton area. Originally, the concept started with 30A. It has been broadened to appeal to the entire South Walton corridor. And as of yesterday, we received an additional opportunity that we also wanted to present to you this morning. That opportunity was submitted by 654 limo chauffeured services. And while the business models are slightly different, the marketing components are relatively the same. And so I do want to chat with you about the marketing components, and then I will point out the opportunities. Yes, sir.
On new business, we have the request for recommendation BCC to approve brand TV outdoor media plan. Is that the one we're on?
We skipped that one.
I think we skipped
It
that.
looks like we're
I'm
going
sorry,
to-
did I jump ahead to a topic?
You might have. We
Let me
just-
go get the other one.
Okay. All right.
My apologies.
Get that other one. I know we're anxious here.
And also, Mr. Chairman, we need to.
Why don't,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we need to adopt the change to the agenda for that other
go ahead
item.
and make that adoption while she's ready to present it too. On number 4, item number 4, we need to make a motion to change the request for recommendation to the BCC on marketing opportunity with shuttle service instead of Sunshine Shuttle.
So moved.
Okay. So, got a motion and a second? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Like sign. Motion carries. Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Pizzo.
Good morning. I'm going to present to you a different opportunity. I'd like to chat with you about the request recommendation to the BCC to approve the Brand TV Outdoor Media Plan, as well as the Shoulder Season Reserve and Emerging Markets Reserves campaign. Now, these are plans that we set aside funds for during the budgeting process, that we plan for during the current fiscal year to make sure the most of readily available and opportunities are presented and that will have the highest return on investment. So that's why you get this plan during the middle of the year. Let's start with the Shoulder Season Reserve, and I want to call out a couple of objectives to this particular plan. This plan builds awareness of South Walton's offerings with the core and emerging markets, and it's designed to drive visitation to South Walton from our quality target audiences, and we're really focusing on the August, September, and leading into shoulder season time frame. Our research has uncovered that the August, September, because of the way that school sessions are starting, that our visitation is a little bit down in August over the last couple of years. So this plan actually helps us to focus on driving visitation during those months to keep existing market share and grow new market share. And that is the purpose of this particular plan. We have had great opportunity success with media that has been utilized, media outlets that we've previously utilized, but we also always look for new opportunities to reach our target audience and influence their disposition to visit. One of the new recommendations this year that I'd like to share with you is Pandora. And Pandora is the top position dominant platform for online music listening. And really what we've found with Pandora is that our testing of other Pandora uses in different plans has really elevated the game. We have a very high return on investment, a very high level of engagement. We feel that investing in Pandora for this particular shoulder season market allows us some flexibility to get into market right away, customize the messages that we need, and affect immediate change. So we're very excited about that. The total impressions will achieve more than 142,000 impressions with this particular media vehicle, and they are video completions. And what completions mean is that when the consumer is fed this video, if they opt out before they complete the video experience, we don't pay for it. But when the video continues to run and they are engaged, then that's when we are paying for the media. So it is a nice completion opportunity for us. Also, and this is Hulu. You're all familiar with Hulu video content. We've utilized Hulu before. It does concentrate on adults 35 to 64, household incomes of 150,000 and above. It's been a very strong platform for us. With this particular plan, we'll have more than 2 million impressions and an investment of $75,000. Orange 142. This is kind of an interesting name, isn't it? Orange 142. But this will support our efforts in driving awareness and travel consideration, again, for August and September. So this particular channel is really focused on those months. And we're talking about creating articles that promote and list summer. So we're also promoting the experience and extending the experience. And so that's a very important differentiator for this particular medium. So this becomes a series of sponsored articles that give the consumer not just an advertising headline and a little bit of body copy and a payoff, but it actually tells the story and is designed to engage the consumer in the story and in the experience. So we really like this channel for that opportunity, and the net budget on that one is $70,000. Next would be Digilent, and this is going to be something kind of interesting. I call this the Big Brother watching opportunity, because this is technology that actually tracks the location of a cell phone user and can feed them messages. And as I go into the next plan, it actually pairs with the outdoor plan, and we've not done outdoor before. And I'm going to share with you why when we get to the outdoor plan. But Digilent allows us to actually track the behavior of a consumer. And so, for instance, when they are driving by an outdoor board that is set up in Atlanta, and it is in a key geographic location, the billboard is in a zip code that aligns with our upper level high income user, our potential target market. That billboard is in that community. When that person drives by with their cell phone, Diligent Technology tracks the fact that they've gone by. They use the locator, and then they feed them an ad. And so when we get to Billboard, I'll tell you a little bit about the changing creative of Billboard that we can do all day long. But Diligent allows us not only to feed our target audience a key message that's of interest to them, but it allows us to track their behavior in the future, and we can tell if that cell phone has actually arrived here in South Walton. So that's going to be a key critical component for tracking to see if we are creating a connection, an awareness that does result in a conversion, meaning that someone's actually come to visit. So we're excited about that opportunity. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have Global Eagle, Southwest TV flies free. This has been a program that we are looking at particularly for the Emerging Market Reserve campaign, and it allows us to analyze the flight patterns into ECP. So that's a key critical feeder airport for us, and we feel like this is an opportunity for us to look at the largest amount of passengers, airline passengers, that we can perhaps influence with a message. So this is a good, strong opportunity for us to connect with them, our air passengers. We also, with that particular program, we're able to leverage over $360,000 in added value exposure to over 5 million Southwest in-flight commercials that were served last year, and that was at no additional charge. So when our advertising agency, Zender Communications, makes a media buy, they will leverage to the best of their ability to get us added value. So this has been a high performer for us, and we'd like to recommend a repeat engagement with them. We also have Boingo Airport Wi-Fi sponsorships as part of the plan. And again, this is in the airports, and when you're in the airport and you log on and you want to use free Wi-Fi, the South Walton message would be played as before you can allow to connect and go to the homepage. So it gives us an opportunity to, again, engage with travel customers who are using airline as transportation. This is based on Wi-Fi session activation in the airports, and the total impression counts are based on performance. So again, another performance generating media opportunity. And this comes in at just under or just over $92,000. The placement recommendation for both shoulder season and emerging market campaigns, we're looking at Google TrueView. And 42% of travelers are inspired to travel by YouTube content. And that's a critical component. They get a little bit of the experience. And if you haven't yet, we encourage you to go to South Walton's YouTube channel and explore the video content that we have, because it is engaging, but it's also indicative of different things that you can see and do here in the market, family travel, weddings, and so forth. So it's a great opportunity to connect with the consumer. The TrueView in-stream video ad format plays our videos prior to another YouTube video running. So you might click on one video, and yet you get sort of your content sponsor from Visit South Walton that plays as well in a like-minded customer. So we're very excited about that opportunity. That is a shoulder season reserve opportunity, as well as an emerging market opportunity. And finally, Facebook, and I know that many, if not all of you, follow us on Facebook, and you'll know that Facebook now is a pay-to-play game. It used to be that when you had a Facebook account as a business or a personal account, that you would be able to put out a message and everyone who was following you would see you. That's no longer the case. A very small portion of our organic content actually reaches the target audience. So we have, again, stepped up and said we're going to have to pay in order to play with the consumers that we have that are already interested in our product and are following us. And we can create paid advertising channels by selecting the right target audience, the income, the geographic area in which they reside, and feed them messages as well. And that's part of this particular campaign. And that is also both for shoulder and emerging market. Instagram, another very strong social performer. And you'll notice a lot of social and digital within this plan, and that's because it allows us the flexibility to get in market when we need to get there with the message that is relevant. So, for instance, a print advertisement, the media, just by the general nature of the media, you submit your materials so far in advance in order to get in that publication. There's no opportunity to make a little adjustment or a course correction if we find that bookings are down in a certain period. With digital media, with social media platforms, it allows us that flexibility to be much more responsive and reactive with the right messaging at the right time. So we're very excited to have Instagram as part of our program, and we will be featuring 30-second TV spots as well, similar to Facebook. NCC Media delivers 30-second or pre-roll and in-stream video ad units within a premium live on-demand cable program. And so this is another opportunity for us to get those TV spots out running on cable network partner sites and apps such as Xfinity and Xfinity TV Go, Uverse app, and so forth. And also with this plan, rounding out this plan is Twitter. And this is a new recommendation for this particular plan. What we've found with Twitter is that more and more travelers are engaging with Twitter. And we're finding that, again, we can message in a very timely fashion to affect change. So now that there are in-feed ads within this social platform, it allows us to not only send that 140-character message, but it allows us to send part of the experience with the message. And we think this is really important. We've watched our Twitter audience grow. We have a propensity to connect with more folks and affect more change, and that's why that particular recommendation has come to the forefront for this particular media plan. Are there any questions on this media plan?
TJ, how long have we been using Twitter?
I'm going to defer to the Zender team since I've been here for 4 months, but it's been a number of years. Kat, would you like to address that?
Catherine Andrew from the Zender team. Just Twitter in general, we use as another communication platform. We tailor our messaging on each social channel based on who we're talking to and what that platform is beneficial for. So Twitter is a lot of group and sales contacts, actually, a lot of media contacts, and then we also participate with Visit Florida and all of their Twitter chats. And then anytime anything's happening in the market, whether it's an event or a media person in market, we track all of those hashtags and just insert South Walton into that conversation. We've seen it work very well as far as engagement goes, and then we're also seeing paid media opportunities are doing really well. So we figured including it here would be a great opportunity to get more of that video content out there, which people are so receptive to.
Right. That's why I asked. I've been following it a little bit more, so I need to pick up on the TDC here so we can see what's going on.
Yeah,
absolutely. So now, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a couple. On the NCC Media, my understanding that one of the top television stations on right now is HGTV, and that's not noted here. Is there a reason for its omission? I think it's the most popular
It is.
cable TV channel, but it's not part of the NCC media. I'm just curious as to why that wasn't included, or maybe it can't be included. Just looking for an explanation.
We do have HGTV in other platforms, not this particular platform. And I'm sorry, Kat, I'm going to have to call upon you again to talk about HGTV within this particular plan.
So NCC Media gives you the opportunity to place media placements within on-demand services, whether that's Xfinity or things like HBO Go and things like that. HGTV doesn't specifically have a platform within NCC, but we do have it within our cable television plan. We're making sure that that's one of the networks we're heavily targeting with cable TV, not necessarily digital video.
One other question on, I'm not even sure I'm saying this right, on the airport Wi-Fi sponsorships. It lists Dallas, Nashville, St. Louis, and Baltimore, but not Atlanta. Is there? Because I think Southwest flies directly to Atlanta,
It does.
and that would seem to me to be the #1 market, and it's not listed here.
I think that's the
I'm
global
sorry?
table here. And this is a matter of, right now, we're
I
looking at
got you.
Houston, which is, has bordered both emerging and
Right.
primary market, Dallas, Nashville, St. Louis, and Baltimore.
And this is specific within the emerging markets campaign, which are our markets that we're not seeing as much growth in. Atlanta's such a great market for us and a heavy market for us. That's technically one of our core markets. So it's not within the emerging market
Well, and your
sections.
boss also just answered the question behind your back. He said it's a drive market, not a fly market.
Correct.
One other quick question. You may or may not get to it, but you kind of went back to the back end of this budget. And the earlier part of the budget is the billboards. Have you guys neutralized I-85 as part of the billboard campaign since it doesn't exist anymore?
We will have to look at that. I know our media team is looking at that right now, how it affects the current placements within Atlanta. And if it does affect those placements, then we will.
There is one
find
on
different.
I-85 right now, and it's going to be a section that's going to be totally closed.
Then we'll reallocate those dollars to a different opportunity then.
Okay. The other question on the billboards, I know they dictate the prices, but it seems like one will have 2 million impressions for $6,000, another one will have 2 million impressions for $12,000. Is that, what's that dictated by? Just what the company says it's going to cost to be on that billboard? Even though the impressions are the
It's dictated
same?
by the market themselves and what the media rates are going for in those particular DMAs.
Okay,
So the markets are driving the prices, sort of a yield management
all right.
issue.
Now, are those rotating digitals?
Yes.
So how, are we one of 5, one of 10, one of 4?
Our message will be up about every 6 to 8 seconds.
Okay.
So we do have, and we're working on that with PJ's team, developing creative, like she said, that is day parted, and so it is specific to the time of day. And once we get all of that approved through PJ's team, we'll also bring that to you to kind of show you how we're going to take advantage of the different day parts in digital and how
Okay.
often our message pops
Well, in
up.
Atlanta, once every 8 seconds, and you're in a traffic jam, you're going to see it about 30 times anyway, so.
Exactly, perfect.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
I have a question, sorry. I have a question about the reason that you all are selecting August and September as your target. The last couple of years, I've seen, and you all please help me with this based on your own experience, but I've seen with the advent of fall break, September and October are very different. And where we see our slow periods is December and January, but we're not targeting anything in that period of time.
Well, have you finished your question? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay. So initially, when we look at the shoulder season market, we realize that we are now losing some market share in August. And so we most definitely want to address that. So we're starting our project messaging, if you will, our shoulder season messaging in the August timeframe, but it certainly rolls through the October-November timeframe. That is a different fiscal year coming up. So as we look at new dollars going into the FY 2018 plan, we'll be talking about new dollars coming in for marketing that starts in that new fiscal year, which is October and beyond. But we also agree with you in that we have opportunities in those shoulder seasons and the low seasons. It's a matter of what the messaging will be, what the mediums will be, and so forth. So we're not ignoring those markets, but this particular plan goes through that end of the fiscal year planning cycle primarily. There's always a little overlap, but
There's
we're not ignoring that.
another curiosity more than anything on this, the first page, where you're talking about the demographic. Research was conducted to identify the highest concentration of households with adults 35 to 64 with income levels of 150K or more. And then there's the comment 175 or more was not an option. Would you explain that to me, please?
So I'm seeing the front. Could you point out a page for me, please?
It's on the first page.
Bottom paragraph on the first page. First sentence.
Bottom paragraph.
The last paragraph, under cable television, media recommendation.
So the next plan?
Yeah, the front of that.
Some of the studies that we've done have shown, independent of this, is that target market is a little
Answer
bit more
that?
prone to travel
We
and go
haven't
to
got to
more
that
exotic
plan yet, but-
locations and things like that. They're far better than, as a company, than we are independently doing that search, but.
Yeah, in all of our research, we have decided to go after that higher household target, higher household income for 175K plus, because we're always trying to drive the quality rather than quantity of visitors coming to the market. So just in all of our marketing plans, we have outlined that that is our target household income. But when we were doing the research for television, all of the television companies that provide that research don't have that household income bracket as something that you can target. So they only offer 150,000 plus, which is still great. So we were using that for all of our targeting.
Because I noticed on
television.
Dr. Downs, their analysis that they did for us this last year, our median income it raised to, I think, the level of 163 or somewhere thereabouts. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's moving up.
Yeah, I
Which
don't
is
think
a
that-
result of
I don't
targeting
think
that.
Excuse this analogy, but I don't think the tail should wag the dog. I think that we should target our market and go with those providers that will do that for us, rather than walking back. I experience in Seaside the benefits of all of my neighbors. So when occupancy may not be as high for Gary's hotel, it may be really high for me. So my experience, of course, is as I qualified it based on that, not so much occupancy of the cottages. So as Mr. Davis alluded to, I think we have to begin to look at how we're doing our marketing and who we're targeting, and the income level is certainly only one way, but I want to encourage us to keep moving that up and have drive quality, not bring it down situationally, and also be careful about when we spend that money, what time of year it is, because at some point that you've got to adjust that in a very big way, not just little ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, PJ.
Yeah, thank you.
And next. Number
Would you
4.
like to talk at all about the day parts on the outdoor board, or has that been answered sufficiently?
Well, anybody have any other questions regarding the outdoors? I think Mr. Velman expressed a concern that I had was since I-85 section got melted, then, there wouldn't be a whole lot of traffic in some areas of that. So just make sure that we're advertising on the right sections. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 4, So, now with the shuttle service,
Would you like to conduct a vote on the media?
We just did.
plan? Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, we did earlier. While you were getting your material, we voted on,
No, that was.
No, we didn't.
That was
oh, on this right here, approving this budget? Okay, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 4. Sorry about that. Item 4.
In your packet this morning is a request a recommendation to the BCC on a marketing opportunity with shuttle service. This was a replacement update as of this morning's packet, and that is because we now have 2 shuttle providers that have come to the TDC with an idea and an opportunity for marketing. The TDC does not fund the operation of a private for-profit business. However, the opportunity that we do have before us is to look at the marketing components. We have 2 service providers with very different business models, and I will share the opportunities with you for both. But I'm going to also start in with the marketing components, which are similar for both providers. And as we look at the marketing opportunities, essentially the Visit South Walton would own the exterior of all proposed shuttles that are running through the South Walton area. With that, we will be focusing our efforts, should the opportunity be moved toward the BCC, we'll be promoting area events and both experience events and signature events. And the opportunity here is to actually engage and capture the consumers that are in market and share with them other things that are happening throughout the year in an effort to create repeat visitation. So these may be opportunities that the traveling public is not currently available or aware of, and so events are certainly a great opportunity for us to promote. We'll also reinforce the Leave No Trace program, beach safety, and the flag system would be on each of the shuttles daily, the Turtle program, and general brand messaging. Video options are available with both providers, and both providers have looked at an opportunity to provide 7 shuttles that run through the South Walton corridor for the season of Memorial Day through Labor Day. We do know that the price per entry is very close on both of the providers, and what I'd like to do is step toward the opportunity with, we got that up there, with Sunshine Shuttle, and kind of go through some of the logistics on this particular program. There would be a fleet of 7 vehicles exclusive to this program. Each of these vehicles would be wrapped with the Visit South Walton marketing message. There would be 2 vehicles running on the west end, Highway 98, with a connector shuttle running in between the 4 shuttles that would be running through Scenic Route 30A. More than 105 vehicle seats in service at all times. That's 7 shuttles, and that's a minimum number of seats. And the proposed stops would be the public beach accesses. There are 9 relationships that Sunshine Shuttle has confirmed with partners along Scenic 30A, and those are essentially sold stops. And those are arrangements between Sunshine Shuttle and the place that the shuttle itself will stop. So those are not things that the TDC becomes involved with. There are 4 pending agreements along Scenic Route 30A at this point in time. The stops, as you can see, are demonstrated within the map that is in your packet and provided above, and then the top version is the entire route. The bottom version focuses on 30A, where the current relationships have been confirmed. So I just wanted to point out the difference on those 2 particular maps. The stops on Highway 98 are something that Sunshine Shuttle is still working toward those relationships in the course of doing business. The pilot program itself would be a media investment of $8,000 per shuttle, 7 shuttles for essentially 3 months, and the investment is $168,000 for the season, plus Visit South Walton would need to invest approximately $20,000 to create the vehicle wraps that go on the shuttles themselves. This particular program, all the shuttle stop agreements are negotiated by Sunshine Shuttle, and we are very pleased that both proposals include the public beach accesses. So that's a point for both particular companies. With the introduction of a new proposal from 654 Limo, do we have a map for 654?
Before we get to that, where is
Oh, yes, sir.
I know it says to be determined, but where would the stop be for Sandestin? That affects two major players in the market. I'm looking at you, Mark.
John,
I concur.
As of
John here,
Stop would be actually at Sandestin and the Hilton. You would each have your individual stops there.
state your name, John.
John Finch, Sunshine Shuttle, Limited.
Come on up.
Yes, it's Sandestin. We're planning on coming to see you, Gary, for the Hilton, also Sandestin, as well as Grand Boulevard. So all three of places there in Sandestin would have a stop.
Sorry.
It's okay. Can we just launch into questions now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter? Yeah, the whole scenic 98 corridor on this plan seems to be a little bit of an afterthought. It sounds like there's been a lot of work and a lot of focus gone into establishing stops all up and down 30A, but as I'm sure most of you know, and if you're in the TDC especially, is that the majority of the TDT dollars originate from the west end of the county. So you've got a lot of density over there. You've got the Hilton Sandestin Resort. You've got hotels. You've got, a lot of high rises up that way. A lot of people presumably want to catch the lift there and head east down to 30A. So I'd be curious to know what kind of progress has been made as to where those stops on Scenic 98 would be in addition to the likes of Sandestin, the Hilton, possibly Grand Boulevard, Silver Sands. And then what kind of progress has been made and how many stops do you anticipate having along that corridor?
I'd like to have Mr. Finch answer some of the logistics of that. I will share with you, to give you a little background, the original proposal from Sunshine Shuttle was to run a trolley system throughout 30A. And after additional and ongoing discussion with Mr. Tusa and our team, looking at some of the logistics, and then outreach that we conducted to some of the bed tax community to see what kind of a reception that program may get, allowed us to understand that the 98 portion of this is going to be really critical even in a pilot program. And so Mr. Finch stepped back and tried to help us address that by agreeing to extend the route throughout South Walton. With that said, it's just been a matter of days since that agreement was reached, and I will let him address the proposed shuttle stops that he is in discussion at, perhaps, along the route.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hagan. Great question. There's a series of 15 stops considering what was called Scenic 98, all the way heading to link into the 30A trolley. So there's a total of 15 stops there. Sandestin and the different restaurants and big hoteliers up and down Scenic 98.
And so my understanding also in just conversations with Jay is that, this idea of pay to play, that Mr. Davis brought up. So if you don't get a vendor or an establishment to write a check, I guess, to have a stop there, does that mean there's just not a stop? Are you saying you have 15 commitments from different people, or
We don't
or
have-
would these be public beach
Great,
access,
great.
so to speak?
On 30A, the numbers have moved from 8, 9, 10. We have 3 more people that are very interested. That total 30A corridor will most likely be somewhere around 13 and 14 stops. Those are letters of intent that we have gotten in our possession. They want to help with the traffic problem. They want the amenity of transportation so that their guests have that ability to go up and down 30A
wherever they want to go, not drinking and driving,
Yep.
using their vehicles and what have you. As far as Scenic 98, we've identified the top 15 locations, and we have appointments starting today to go see those people.
How many of those do you think you're going to get
On Scenic 98?
on Scenic 98? We're really kind of focusing on Scenic 98. We know a lot of effort's been put into
Great.
it, so where are we on Scenic 98?
That'll be interesting. We really don't know. We're going to go out and we're going to offer the service. I think that I'm optimistic. I think people are going to want to participate. They certainly have on 30A. I mean, we couldn't do this without the HOAs and the partners on 30A. The Hub, the Point, 30 Avenue, Watercolor, I mean, everyone is participating on 30A. I think we're going to have support in Sandestin, and Scenic 98, it may be a bit new for them, but we're going to go out there and we're going to show them the plan and ask them to participate in the whole overall community. We seem to have a lot of interest from the restaurants and bars because we're bringing guests to their front door and literally letting people out in their front door.
Sure. Do you see the idea maybe of charging, say, a hospitality partner or a lodging company additional money to have a stop? Isn't that a little double dipping if the guests that are staying in that establishment are already funding this by way of their bed tax, and now there's additional money to get a stop on that section of the corridor?
Pam, maybe you can answer that. You've participated in the last 3 years. We haven't experienced that. We all know it's a traffic problem. We all know people drinking and driving. It's an amenity, so people are really more interested in having this amenity so their guests can get up and down, to the different establishments and not have to drink and drive, and their kids can take it, and parents don't have to carpool them back and forth and be on the road all the time. So,
Well, I think from a financial perspective, any transit system should be financed differently. John has stepped up and provided transit, started to provide transit, made an effort to get it out there, to get it in the minds of our visitors. But I believe that the TDC needs to step up, not with advertising, but with a way to implement transit in our visitor area. John is a private business owner. The gentleman that owns 654 Limo as well. They're trying to provide it. They're trying to figure out the best way they can make it work. But for a number of years, the TDC has continued to put its hand up and say, we can't do that. We can't do that.
I think part of the reason that we can't do it, and this is kind of like a gray area, is that we can't fund any DOT projects or transportation projects. So the way around it is by advertising the trolley with the wrap.
Well, so far, I don't.
And I'm not arguing. by
I
no
don't,
means, I'm
no,
just-
I want to discuss it. I think it's important. But I don't understand yet why the TDC cannot. I understood that we reached out to the Attorney General a couple of years ago, and we asked that question. And I don't remember exactly what the answer was, but it was a negative. So maybe if someone here remembers, maybe Mr. Atkinson can tell us why it is that the TDC bed tax dollars cannot help fund in some way transit.
Pam, let me make a comment. Because I sat in on some of those earlier meetings
Right,
with
that's
you.
right.
And in deference to, oh, you're not John.
No, I wanted to make a comment that when y'all through discussing.
But, and I don't know the legalese of what came down from the state, but back a few years ago when we were looking, they were looking at proposing 4 shuttles on 30A, and the cost was like almost $1 million.
Right.
Now we're looking at 7 shuttles for let's say 188 with the wraps. So there's been a tremendous change in what they're bringing to us today compared to what they brought a few years ago. And I think the resistance was we didn't have $1 million to spend on 4 shuttles. and I'm using these numbers from memory, but
Yeah. I
they're
remember
fairly
that.
accurate. So I think that's part of the reason that there was some resistance in the past, because the cost was so high. And now we're looking at, 7 shuttles at less than $200,000 as opposed to 4 for $1 million.
But we're not, the TDC is not providing the money to help operate the shuttle.
That's correct.
They're providing money to advertise and take advantage of the fact that there will be 7 vehicles running up and down
Right.
30A
And I
beyond.
think the question's a legal question, and if Mr. Atkinson could address it. I mean, from talking to Mr. Tusa, and I'm new to this board still, but there's just certain ways we can spend that money, and it was kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was struggling to find a way to do this, and I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it's, we all sit here and say, oh, boy, we need public transportation down here, but, nobody's stepping up. And I don't know that we can legally fund it.
No, and I think that was the question that was posed. Again, I'm plenty more familiar with it than I am, and as far as advertising, there's no problem with you using advertising dollars to wrap these shuttles. I think everybody, I think they're determined to talk to you about that, and that they're comfortable doing that. But as far as you operating the business, or you becoming a partner in the business, then that's a different level, and I think, well, I understand the fact that was not appropriate, and I'm not sure what the Attorney General's opinion was, I don't have it in front of me, but I think that this was a way they found that you could participate and help these, vendors provide their service by you being able to, spend advertising dollars that you put on their vehicles.
But if the TDC pays service providers, which it does, what's the difference?
Well, and, I have a few comments and observations. So I've been working on this for the past year now since I arrived. And the Attorney General opinion that I read, because when I started, I heard through the grapevine that we could not underwrite a service, that it had to be something we did on our own. And I read the Attorney General letter, and that really wasn't specified in there. So I think that in reference to us in particular, not necessarily marketing on vehicles and a marketing opportunity, but let's write a letter to the Attorney General and get an opinion and find out specifically what we can spend our dollars on, because a lot of municipalities underwrite operational expenses for buses and transportation. I mean, just to our west, Pensacola, Santa Rosa Island Authority, their bed tax collector, they fund their beach shuttle, their transportation. So if they're doing it, how are they doing that? So I am working on these things, and I think what we're talking about here today is a marketing opportunity. We all realize that we need to do something about transportation in South Walton. So is this a good first step, either one of these opportunities? I think it is. Is it the ultimate end goal of where we need to be with transportation in our community? I'd say probably not. I think we need to think much bigger, and I think that's what you're getting at, Pam, is we need to think really much bigger than just a few shuttles driving around on 30A and Scenic Gulf Drive. And that's ultimately where I'd like to see us be. Can we get there today or tomorrow? Probably not. Can we get there in a year or two from now? I'd like to think we can. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to maybe try out one of these marketing opportunities and see what happens, where the pitfalls are, where the challenges are, where the successes are, and see where that leads us and down the road and what the next steps are and where we want to go with transportation needs of South Walton. So that's kind of my thoughts in a nutshell. But I think, though, bigger picture, we do need to get some insight from the Attorney General on can we specifically underwrite a opportunity. And I don't think it's something that should rest solely on the TDC. I think we need a much larger transit system in Walton County. And I mean, I don't want to put Commissioner Anderson on the spot, but we've talked about north and south. And so what does that look like? So let's think big picture of a transit system for all of Walton County that the TDC can participate, obviously, from the South Walton perspective.
Thank you for doing that. I'd like to say one more thing, and that is, I'm not in love with the model that has been used. I'm not in love with the pay-to-play. I think that if you get on a transit vehicle, you should be able to get off wherever you choose. But I'm also part of a world of experiment. And if you don't try something and then work on it and make it work out, That's why we've participated from the very beginning, because at least John, as a provider, was willing to reach out there and take a couple of risks, run a shuttle. He had one shuttle. But you also have to help the public, our public, get used to the fact that there's public transit.
I agree.
And so over several years, that one little shuttle got people used to it. First year, you didn't see a lot of ridership. Second year, saw more ridership. I think each year you're going to see more ridership. But we're part of a large community, and we have to get behind public transit. And it's not perfect. You ask John, he'll tell you it's not perfect. But what's wrong with it? I mean, what's wrong with it? It's going to get us 7 shuttles. We haven't had 7 before. We've had 1. And Jay has worked with the guys on the east, the guys on the west, I'm sorry. Yeah. The guys and the gals on the west. And I think we all just need to start putting some money where our mouths have been about transit and traffic.
Well, and just one other observation, Mark, if you don't mind, just indulge me for a moment. I think it's really careful that, we're talking about pay to play, and we're talking about bed tax collectors possibly paying an additional fee for a bus to stop there. And I think we have to remember, and we can't lose sight of this, is we are advertising on these vehicles. So these 2 providers are coming to us and saying, we have a marketing opportunity, and we're advertising on these vehicles. We are not underwriting their operational expenses, and it's not really within our purview from that perspective to say this is what you should or shouldn't do. They're the ones who are bringing these to us, and if we don't like those things, then maybe we need to pass on them, or we say, okay, then these are acceptable to us. So, I think we need to be really careful there that, we are not saying, okay, here for 654 limo or for Sunshine Shuttle, that we are paying you a fee to provide this service. We are advertising on these vehicles. I think we need to really keep that in mind.
Yeah, it needs to stay there. I think everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
Mark.
First of all, I've had a relationship with John with Sunshine Shuttle, and I can validate that he is a quality operator and very responsive to the needs of the customer. We have a unified transportation system at Sandestin. The startup was with Sunshine Shuttle, and it was very successful, so I thank John for that. But I do have some questions on the financial side of things. The proposal doesn't indicate what the hours of operation is for these shuttles. Do we have an answer for that?
Yeah, we have that. Do you have that? I don't remember off the top of my head. Okay, so for Sunshine Shuttle, it's noon to 10.
12 noon, 10 p.m.
And
What number of vehicles per day are going to be on the road?
The total number will be
You're
every
going
day.
to have 7 per
So
day
it's
on
7
the
per
road?
day.
Is that correct?
And the numbers are a little bit different for 654
Okay, and the
limos.
seating capacity of these vehicles? What's the range of seating capacity on the vehicles?
Yes, sir. Roughly, you would average around 20 seats per vehicle.
I'm sorry, 20?
20, yes, sir.
An average of 20 seats per
So in
vehicle.
just trying to understand the financial side of this, John,
140 seats.
how many hours per week are you going to have your vehicles on the road during this 14-week period of time?
It'll run 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for roughly 99 days from each holiday, Memorial
Let me
Day
do
to
my
Labor.
math real
Yes, sir.
quickly. So 70 times 7, 490 hours?
Yes, sir.
Sound about right?
Be 10 hours a day times 7, yes, sir.
Times 7 vehicles, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's 70 hours a day times 7, 490.
Times 99.
And our weekly cost, $12,000. So our advertising cost is about $25 per hour for the vehicles on the road. Is that correct? So I'm just taking the number of hours, dividing that into the weekly cost of, it's 98 days, right? 168,000 for the period. So if I take 168,000 divided by 14 weeks, that's 12,000 per week. I take 12,000 divided by the 490 hours.
188,000.
Yeah, but that's the 20,000 is separate for
You know, we're wrapping the vehicles, right?
We're wrapping the vehicles, so it's actually down to 168.
It's one time though, right? Is that each vehicle or is that all the vehicles?
So our advertising cost is $25 an hour to have mobile billboards running up and down 38. I'm all for transportation. I recognize the need for transportation, but I do think that we are funding the transportation costs at $25 per hour. So I'm all for advertising, I'm all for, wrapping these vehicles, but I'm concerned about, the separation of transportation costs versus advertising. Without question, at $25 an hour, we're subsidizing the transportation cost. Our unified transportation system at Sandestin was a $32 per hour cost, and, to provide the service. So at 25, we're significantly subsidizing that expense. Is that right? My math correct?
I'd have to
John?
use a calculator to do that. But we have a traffic problem. And we have to bring this amenity to our tourists. We have to enhance the experience for our people. So,
Well, I'm
so
supportive
if
of
we
transportation.
gift wrap this, and we have all the businesses in the HOA communities funding this system, and you guys are just doing the advertising, sounds like a good partnership to me.
I'm all for transportation, and if it's within our scope to fund transportation, I am fully supportive, whether it's on 30A or 98 or within Walton County, north, south. We have a transportation issue and we're obligated to address it if that's within our scope of duties and responsibilities. But $25 an hour for a moving billboard for 98 days on 30A is a pretty expensive proposition.
Well, you got to divide that by 7.
Brian, you have a question?
I did.
John, according to the logistics on your route here, it shows on Scenic 98 going over to Hutchinson Street, which would be over in Destin at Mid-Bay Bridge. Is that a typo, or are we just looking at?
Yeah, let me see what you got there, Brian.
What we've got is proposed route going from South Walton Highway 98 to Hutchinson Street.
It goes right to the borderline of the Walton County.
They go like Captain Dave's, so it's
Yes, sir.
actually just a misprint?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, couple points here. As Richard mentioned earlier, there was 500,000 a year before last. It was quite a substantial sum. On that note, we know it's not cheap, and we're not a government entity at this point in time running a transportation service. I bet you we could probably do it less if the county was running its own, more than likely. We have a couple private companies that are willing to step up, and I guess work away with our statutes, the Florida statutes, to be able to give us an opportunity to provide our clients that are our tourists that are coming here the opportunity of not running into traffic. We hear it all the time. He alluded to it. We've all alluded to it before. We have a problem, and people are starting to say it's too crowded. So a pilot program, call it what you want to call it, we need to do something instead of sit here and kick the can down the road. So 500,000 to 168, I'd say that's a good difference, a big difference in getting something started and moving forward at this point in time. Yeah, we can work the bugs out because I'm sure there's going to be some bugs to be worked out. Mark's made a good point. It's not cheap. But, where do we go?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
It's April. And anything that we do with the county, anything that we do with any other entity, we only meet bi-monthly. By the time we get anything that has any, where we can get any kind of traction at all, the summer's gonna be over. My personal feeling is, I don't disagree with Mark's numbers, but I don't totally agree with them either. I think they're on the vehicle, maintenance, fuel, drivers, workman's comp, insurance and all that. $24 an hour doesn't seem unreasonable. My feeling is, if we don't do something right now, we're gonna end up in the same place next year. Now, that gives us, my proposal would be to just do something this year with whoever we feel is the best company, get it before the BCC, get it approved, and get this program started at least for this year. That gives us another 12 months to look at every other avenue. And that's making sure that the Attorney General doesn't slap us in the face for it, saying we're violating the law.
Well, and we can write that letter, and we can certainly have a response back in that time frame. I know sometimes it takes a while to get those responses, but I feel confident we can get that in time to look at what we want to do in the future. So I was just speaking with Clayton about that, and I'd like to make a recommendation to the council that you authorize me to work on a letter, and then we'll get that. I'm sorry, yeah, question, Tim?
No, I was going to ask Mr. Bagby if he remembered what we did with that letter from the Attorney General before the response for the statute.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have it. I've
It's the
seen it.
same
I do
one?
have
All
it.
right.
But like I said, it doesn't really address us operationally, in my opinion, from what I read. Like I said, I kind of heard through some other people, oh, you can't do that. But when I read it, I didn't see that in that letter. So I think we ought to write a letter and ask the very specific question outside of advertising, because we've asked that question, and we found out that we can do advertising.
Because to your benefit, I mean, to your due diligence,
Yeah.
you've found an avenue maybe at the Santa Rosa County with their authority, island authority, where they run their own, and that's a tourist, they do the bed tax and everything else, just like we do. So
So there
there's
might be-
something in there.
There
So,
might be some
yeah.
opportunities there that I'd like to explore further and bring that. But to Mr. Velman's point, I think, if we want to try something and start exploring options on what transportation needs and what the challenges are and what the pitfalls and what the successes are, at least start that process now. And so when we develop a bigger plan, we'll have a few things under our belt to say, you know what, that worked great, or that didn't work, and these are some of the challenges we were having, and we can, talk to future vendors about that as we move forward. So I think it could be beneficial with that conversation we have in the future with those folks.
Well, let me make a motion so we can separate this conversation from transit to advertising. I move that the council vote to approve writing a letter to the Attorney General to seek his opinion about what the role of the TDC can be in transit.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Aye.
Matt, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Don't you have an opportunity for discussion
You
before?
want to discuss?
Yeah, can we pass this proposal in lieu of that letter coming from the Attorney General? In other words, can we make a motion today in lieu of getting that letter?
Well, we can,
Because I think
I think they're two separate issues, so I think you
two
can.
separate issues, what
Yeah.
we're trying to do, Richard, let him.
Don't we need to look at the other proposal?
Yeah, I was just going to say, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we need to look at the other
We'll
proposal. We
give
haven't done
him
that
an
yet.
opportunity to move forward with just finalizing this
Gotcha. I'm with
transportation
you.
issue.
That-
Whether we
that-
can get into the transportation business or not,
Gotcha.
instead of just marketing.
That's it.
And again, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I clearly, sitting on the board before, I clearly remember it is an issue of transportation or advertising. So I think that's been it. I think we're kind of, to get a letter from the Attorney General again is just going to be like a repeat.
Yeah. Well,
So.
Well, but the last time we asked specifically as a marketing
And then-
opportunity. And so,
Right, and then it was kind of unpalatable because it was a heck of a lot more expensive.
right.
So we've already asked those, so now
What I
it's.
would suggest we do is look at the letter that you said before, what request, and then maybe capture different terms, be more specific as to what role you could play in regards to transportation. So we need to look at both letters to make sure it's not the same request.
right, at least we give you the opportunity.
Yeah.
How about
Because
this?
we're going right back to what Richard said.
Yeah.
We're kicking the can down the
Yeah,
road.
well-
What we're doing this.
Well, I think depends on what action you take today. I mean, if you do decide to choose one of these vendors to move forward with, I don't think we're kicking the can down the road. But I think in terms of,
If we go that route.
right, yeah, if you choose today to go with one of those vendors, I don't think we're kicking the can down the road. I do think we're exploring, obviously, our options for the future. So we can get the letter drafted, we can bring that back to you at the June meeting. I think that's still appropriate time, gives us time to get the letter drafted. That way you can review it, and then we can send it out from that point.
I feel like that we ought to make a decision today, and unless that letter states that we're strictly prohibited from doing this, we ought to implement something, because by
It does not.
June, the service, you know, we want to be in business.
No, we can vote on this.
Yeah,
We're gonna
we
vote
can
on
do
one
it.
of these two
We're
companies
just
to
trying to
be.
get Transit out of the.
Yeah, well, I think we're
conversation.
with you on that, Richard, but Mr. Bagby, you have a comment?
And before he gets up here, I gotta say, I've got a little bit of a mixed emotion because, and I'm not speaking for Mark whatsoever, but
to do something.
we don't have that problem on the resort because, to be very honest with you, I want our guests to stay on the resort. But for the bigger picture, I know in reality, they don't all stay on the resort. And I do hear them, I almost said a profanity word, sorry. I do hear them complaining about the traffic. So for the bigger scope of things, some sort of transportation would be prudent, but
Yeah, because they go shopping, they come to
they
see
do.
me, they
I
shop
don't want
in
them
my
to stay,
stores, they go to
I don't
the
want them to
outlet.
go to your 38, but
Okay, so,
no offense.
They're
right.
coming, Gary, whether you're.
I know.
Mr. Bagby.
Yeah, a little context. You can write the letter, you can look at the question last time, and it's going to tell you if you find it's promotion of tourism, okay, which the last proposal that was initially brought to the TDC was $250,000 from the private sector, $250,000 from the county, and $250,000 from the TDC. And the TDC at that time felt that wasn't promotion of tourism, that was underwriting the operational cost, which is not promotion of tourism. We wouldn't give you $250,000 to run your community. We wouldn't give you $250,000 to run your business. That's even though they may be tourist related. And so that was where we got hung up before. But the Attorney General is not going to tell you can't do it. They're going to tell you you're going to have to find that it is in the promotion, it falls under the statutory guidelines. And we just couldn't reach that point with that initial proposal. So our counter proposal was, we can use marketing dollars, advertising dollars to help offset the costs, but we can't do this. Okaloosa County tried this. They subsidized to the tune of about $175,000 a year, the shuttle over there, and they found that the tourists didn't use it, even though it went to Destin Commons, even though it comes into Walton County, actually. And the reason was because there was, a tourism worker that came down. That was how they did it like the third year. But the tourists weren't riding the shuttle. Now, I think they probably would on 30A. I'm not so sure on Scenic Gulf Drive, but they might. But you have to find that's related to the promotion of tourism. And the initial proposal, quite honestly, I think the previous TDC found correctly that it had limited promotion of tourism, and it was just underwriting an operational cost. The wrapping, I will tell you that we're signed up for this as one of the destinations or one of the stops. I know Seaside is, and there's others, but there's got to be that linkage. If you don't establish that linkage, or if you believe that you're underwriting the operational cost as opposed to promotion of tourism, then you have to follow the statute. Because if you don't, somebody will sue you, and then you'll be paying their lawyers, which we seem to do a lot. Okay,
That's good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Let me just say something to one of Jim's points, is that I don't think that any of these transport programs are going to be successful unless you market the hell out of it. There has to be an awareness. You've got to have it out there. It has to have a kind of a catchy name. It needs to be everywhere you look, and it has to be communicated to all the guests up in in their rooms via social media. So one thing I would like to hear more from Mr. Finch as well as from the 654 group is what do they have in mind in terms of marketing these programs? And because if there's not an awareness, they're going to fail. And back to the point about transportation in general, I'm fully in favor of a large, comprehensive system. I think we need to go there. That maybe one of the risks that we face as the TDC is that, I know I think personally the cost is not bad. If you think about the cost of a billboard per hour, if you think, we pay thousands of dollars a year for billboards, but sometimes they're the electronic ones, and you might just get a few seconds of a flash image, and then it's on to the next 20 companies that are advertising. So I think if you added up all those seconds, we'd probably be doing okay at 24 an hour. But maybe one of the risks we face is to our own brand of South Walton County. So the experience on this bus needs to be exemplary. It just needs to be high quality. If it's a bad experience, it could tarnish our own brand, and that's what I would, I would worry about, is the quality of the experience to the guest.
John had video lap.
Gary and Mark, I think you guys are aware of Sunshine's quality, if we've ever had a problem with quality. At Sandestin, they're running a transportation system over there for 10 years. Their largest ridership before Sunshine got there was 70,000 people in 365 days. We went over there, created the app, the websites, moved that ridership up to 250,000 riders in the first year. We have the technology. We're the most advanced transportation company in Northwest Florida. So for this year, you will have an app. Every single person before they even get here are going to be able to download that app, see where the trolley is in real time, how far it's out, where the stops are, boom. So we're ready to go with it. It's already up and at 'em.
But that's a Sunshine Shuttle app.
Yes, sir.
And it's got, to his point, it's got to be a Visit South Walton app.
Yeah.
We're going to understand what I'm saying?
We're going to work together, okay? We're both going to have the apps. We're going to be running the apps. They're going to have the apps, we're going to have the apps, and what have you.
PJ, hang on. PJ, you got some marketing that we can work with him on his app? Is there a way of doing that?
Creating
Yes,
the
sir.
awareness?
In fact, we think it's very important that the South Walton app be the primary app, and that is the app that we will market. So we intend to incorporate either program into our application, our app, so that we are continuing to reinforce the brand, not only for the service, but what's available along the route. So that's very, very important to us, and that will most definitely be a priority project for us.
Okay. Yeah, because that's important, know where the stops are, and if our name's attached to that,
I think that's critical.
That's our goal. Yeah,
Correct.
that's one of our goals.
Correct.
Is someone here from 654 Limo?
Yes,
Yeah,
there is someone.
we're going to finish this motion for Jay, I guess it is. We have a second.
We still have that on the table
And
in
then
a second.
yeah, we have a discussion now. Do we have, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, Jay, there you go. All right, next. Now you want to finish up for the second proposal.
I would, thank you. I'd like to share with you some of the program schematics for 654 Limo Chauffeured Services. Mr. Nathan Wilson is here today. This is actually a follow-up proposal. So you had heard from Sunshine Shuttle over the years. This particular proposal was originally presented to the Marketing Committee in March of 2015 and was not moved forward. The proposal has been modified, and there are a lot of similarities to the program offered by Sunshine Shuttle. So let me sort of go through some of the logistics to share with you what's like-minded and where some of the differences are. The proposed seasonal service route would be Memorial Day through Labor Day, so we have a like-minded window of opportunity there. The hours of operation, however, are proposed for 10 a.m. to midnight, and so that is more hours per day with this particular proposal. The number of vehicles proposed is the same, the 7 vehicles. The routes would be a little different. I'll show you that on a map here in just a moment. The investment is slightly less, but not discernible. It is was $168,000 for the Sunshine Shuttle proposal. This particular proposal is $163,800. So it's roughly $4,200 for the season. A little different, little lower price point. Originally, the proposal came in as initial agreement suggested as 3 years. Visit South Walton is willing to look at this particular program as a pilot program for 1 year. And then we need to look at this as an organization and under the guidance of the TDC and the BCC and say, what did we do right? What did we affect change? What was the ridership? And how do we build a program going forward? So we wanted to share with you that Mr. Wilson is flexible in looking at this as a 1-year pilot program. The additional I guess point of differentiation is really on the operational end of things. As you look at the screen in front of you, you will see an overall map without all the routes, the point stops delineated. But let me share with you, while Mr. Finch at Sunshine Shuttle is looking at relationships at various stops, whether that be a bed tax collector or a restaurant or an attraction, the proposal submitted by 654 Limo is really looking at relationships with the bed tax community, with a belief that our customers, our visitors who will be potentially using this particular service, start and stop there at their point of stay. So the stops will actually be proposed at the point of stay and move through to, through the various attractions, the Outlet Mall, Grand Boulevard, Seaside, etc. But the focus is on the lodging partner relationships, and that because that's where the customer starts and stops. In this scenario, instead of what you've shared as a pay-to-play perception of one proposal, in this proposal, the customer actually pays for ridership via a resort service fee. And that would be a discussion between the transportation provider and the bed tax collector to come to an arrangement, but it wouldn't be an add-on. It wouldn't be an opportunity for the customer to board a shuttle and then have to drop in 4 quarters. It was proposed as being part of a resort service fee or a bed tax collector service fee at the point of check-in. So it's seamless for the customer. They don't have a perception of having to expend additional dollars, but that is the relationship. And when Mr. Wilson steps forward, we'll let him address that if you have any questions about that. But this is the point of both of these programs, is to really move people along the corridors in which they want to travel. So it's pretty important along the aspect of reducing potential congestion, reducing some of the frustration with parking, and making the visitor experience seamless. So if they don't have to get out of their cars, regardless of which provider you may choose, that's enhancing the visitor experience. But it also has an impact on our local community, which I think is very important for us to consider as well. There is an opportunity for additional investment to, of course, add additional shuttles, perhaps 1 additional shuttle during the pilot program. We're bringing forth the 7 shuttle proposal because it is an apples to apples comparison as far as dollars and cents invested versus service. So again, the hours of operation are a little longer during the day. The relationship as far as financial, and that's an operational relationship outside of the realm of the TDC. But this would be a relationship between the service provider and the bed tax collector in order for this program to be funded. The marketing component is essentially the same. We will wrap these vehicles with the South Walton message. We will continue this along the same lines of thought that have been presented earlier with the beach safety program and the turtles and so on and so forth. So essentially there are no major shifts in any of the marketing components from a proposal of marketing to marketing.
Are they stopping at the beach access point?
Yes, they are. All the beach accesses are included in this particular proposal as well.
Reading the site, they're looking for a 3-year commitment?
No, they have. We spoke with them about that. This is an agreeable 1-year pilot program. If I may talk about the way that this particular provider will market the program, this will be a schedule. They typically have brochures, so we had a brief discussion about that this morning. Of course, social media, both theirs and ours, web, and this particular system of transportation has a GPS available on it as well, so folks can tell where it is and so forth. So was there an opportunity for an app? Yes, there is. It's not part of what Visit South Walton would invest in, the partner app, but we can certainly put the stops on our own app. So there's, again, an apples to apples comparison, not only in what we're investing in marketing-wise, but how we can promote the program to those folks that are here visiting in market.
Quick question. Is the vehicle capacity the same, and is the architectural design the same? I mean, we're all familiar with the Sunshine Shuttle trolley. Is 654 Limo proposing the same type of vehicle?
It is a very similar shuttle. It may be a different brand vehicle.
Right.
I'll let
Is the
Mr.
seating
Wilson
the same?
address that. The seating was a minimum of 14 passenger.
Why don't we have the,
So real quick, just let me clarify Richard's question. So the trolley that's running right now currently on 30A, well, not currently, but last summer and a couple summers before that, John has one trolley. And so in an interest of keeping costs down, John has proposed using his buses in lieu of that because he doesn't want to outlay that capital expense of buying those trolleys, which I understand that. I mean, if we're only willing to commit for a year, I certainly wouldn't as a business owner outlay that cash. I mean, because they're about $100,000 a pop. So anyway, so he has the one trolley, which will continue to run, and then he will run a series of buses in lieu of that trolley. So in regard to your question, they are very similar in that the majority of them are going to be mini buses running up and down 30A and Scenic Gulf Drive.
A minibus.
It's kind of like the bus you have the.
Sandestin?
It's kind of similar, yeah, similar to Sandestin.
Not a Greyhound.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
good question.
Because John owns a lot of Greyhounds.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
He said it was a 20-seater.
But 6x4s is only 14
seats.
14 seats.
Is that what it said on there?
And maybe we can get into it when the gentleman comes up on the resort service fee. I'd be curious, is this now another fee that gets put on the bill of everybody's bill regardless if they ride? Or do they make a decision when they check in, yes, I'd like to check yes, I want to ride the bus?
The applicant here?
Yeah.
Yes. Come
I'm
on
going to
up.
ask Mr. Wilson to answer that question.
We have some questions for you.
Boy, do we
Yeah, boy.
My name's Nathan Wilson, Nathan Wilson.
Good morning. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nathan.
So maybe you can talk to the idea of the funding aspect in terms of this resort service fee and how that works and
Yes,
how
sir.
does it work to the customer?
Well, we've been running a similar program in Okaloosa County for multiple years, and the way that we've been doing it, obviously, we don't have marketing dollars from them, so we've been running it privately. We've went to bed tax collectors, condos, and hotels, and struck arrangements with them, individual arrangements that had it to be where there was money paid in a resort fee, some sort of service fee, on a per occupied room basis. So that way there was no budget expense to the actual bed tax collector. It went straight through to the tourist who's going to use the service. So in the current relationships, yes, it's all occupied rooms, whether they use it or not, so that it was the lowest cost possible and kind of an equal fairness of amenity. Much the same way if the particular bed tax collector with their other amenities, whether they had pools or breakfasts or different amenities that they offer, some guests will use them, some guests will not. It was a similar concept. But that's sort of what we have proposed here to help offset the other operational side.
And can you give us an idea of either, is that a percentage or is it a fixed amount per night?
We've been very flexible. It depends on each unit or each bed tax collector has different needs and I would say restrictions. So some have done percentage, some have done dollar amounts. It just depends on what worked for them. Our goal has always been to be win-win. So whoever we go and talk to, we try and find out, hey, what will work for you, as opposed to one standard cookie cutter product that says, hey, either it's this or nothing. We try to go in and say, hey, what will work for you, and see if that would then be okay. And like, okay, that was fine. Let's make that work, and then add you as the person who wants to be part of this program.
Are you saying it's mandatory for all tax collectors?
It's not mandatory.
Okay.
No, in this particular, in the current model that we run in Okaloosa, it's mandatory because obviously it's what's funding the operation. In this particular proposal that we spoke with Mr. Tusai had said that in this one-year initiative, we're going to run this either way. So it won't be a pay-to-play. It'll be, hey, I'll come to you and say, this is what we think should happen in order to sustain it. And if you say yes, then fantastic. If you say no, we're still stopping at your particular place for this agreed upon 100 days of summer for this initial project. So in that context, it's not pay-to-play.
Gotcha.
We're going to stop there regardless for this particular season.
But in the future, it probably would go to that.
I would say in order to make it sustainable, something's going to have to, partnerships are going to have to be made, or as you guys had been addressing, some other funding source will have to be there because, as I'm sure it's been brought up earlier,
Are you based out of Okaloosa County, and are you an Okaloosa County registered business or a Walton County registered business?
We're Okaloosa County.
Okay.
And registered there. We've been doing business in Walton County for 14 years as well, and have
I've seen your black.
many
cars.
relationships. Yeah.
Where are your, do you have, how many stops you have on the Scenic Gulf Drive?
We currently have a dozen or more. I mean, I could list each one. I don't have the exact count, but we also have relationships with Newman Daily, Counts Oaks at Surfside, Grand Boulevard, Silver Sands Outlet Mall, and on down. So, and then Okaloosa County, Harbor Walk, Palms, Vision Area, those places as well. So, and all the beach accesses, Pompano Joe's, Whale's Tail, Crab Trap, etc. We go to all of those as well.
And what kind of vehicles are you going to provide?
Well, the standard vehicle size for most minibuses is 14 passenger. You can go up higher to 20. We have access, and in our fleet we have both size vehicles. The reason that we proposed 14 is simply because it's easier to drive. You don't need a CDL to drive it. Therefore, you don't have the same problem with getting the limited resources that we all have during the summertime of finding employees, because one you can have that's easier than the other. But if that becomes an issue, if that was the sticking point, then we certainly would offer larger size vehicles if that's what you guys would like. I think with the frequency of vehicles, the 7 or 8 that we are able to do, you're there frequently enough that I don't know that 20 is always going to be that you're at capacity. I think 14 would be, that we've seen, is plenty of capacity on a frequency. It's not necessarily if you're doing longer time intervals in between, but when you're doing something frequent, then it's typically never been an issue.
Do y'all have an app?
We don't have an app specific. I know that in our particular capacity, we do have a GPS system that can be used just like an app and can be integrated into an app, pretty quickly. It wouldn't take more than a few days to a week to create an actual app with the GPS system. Recently, we did work with Cultural Arts Association for songwriters, and we used our current GPS system with them, where they were able to log in and promote that out where people could see where the vehicles were as well. And so it's seamless. It's something that we could easily work with the TDC on.
Okay.
Would this technically connect to Okaloosa's transit system?
It could, yes. So if you want it to be able to go the entire way, just simply because of where they overlap, if a customer wanted to continue to go, I suppose they could. Or if you want us to have some sort of mechanism that says, that we have to check or ask, we could certainly implement that too if you don't want that to occur. But you would have a similar ending point with one and an overlap with another.
So Nathan,
Yes, ma'am.
help me understand the stops, because what I'm hearing is there's 6 weeks till Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to go to each of the resorts or hotels or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
To convince them to contribute to this. I'm concerned that you're going to have enough stops along the route that we're looking at in that period of time.
Yes, ma'am. What I was saying earlier, and I apologize, is we're going to make those stops at those units irrespective of whether or not we are able to arrange some sort of business relationship.
So those red dots that are on your map are committed stops.
They're not committed stops. The red dots were more just to show the area that we're encompassing, the comprehensive component of all of South Walton. So from all the way into Miramar Beach and the county line, all the way out to 30 Avenue and Inlet Beach area. It was the idea that no beach community is being left out. But as far as actual stops, we do have some already that we currently work with that I don't think would be a problem, but even the ones that don't. So whether it's Sandestin that we don't currently have a relationship or a stop with, or Hilton or Topsail or any of the other ones that are there, certainly as you go down, we already have Surfside. Now we'd have to talk to Majestic Sun, and we're in talks with Seascape, is the idea of saying, hey, we're going to make you a stop regardless for this season. Let's talk about how we can continue this on a longer term piece. So as far as the stops go, they would be there.
If I was at Blue Mountain
Yes, ma'am.
Beach
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I wanted to go to Gulf Place.
Yes, ma'am.
How would I know that you were out there? How would I know that you were available? Would I just wait by the side of the road, and if your bus came, I could flag you down and then go to Gulf Place? How
No,
would that work?
we're going to have to go and make specific ones along 38 the same way that we would do on Scenic 98 is we would go to Gulf Place and we'd go to, I don't know exactly where in Blue Mountain, because there's a lot of houses, so it would have to be a specific stop, maybe the Redfish, Bluefish area where I believe the restaurant Trebechi is. Somewhere in there, we're going to have to say, like we did on the Songwriters Festival, where there's designated locations that are the most frequented, because certainly 38 presents its own challenge in that you can't just stop anywhere or people might be on the bus forever. So you have to have some specific stops that make sense logically, so you're not going to be able to get to every single place. It's more of you try and get them to the larger establishments and then let them go from there.
What do your stops look like? Are they visible? Is it just a post in the ground? What's it look like?
Currently, there's no specific visibility with a post in the ground. Currently, because we make the relationships with the bed tax collectors, there's the relationship of we're going to pull into the Port Cashore or we're going to pull up to this particular area that's designated with that particular or with that particular company. They kind of tell us where they want us to be, and then from that standpoint, the partnership is they're telling their guests, here's where the stop is. And then when the guests get on, we tell them on any stop that we go to, here's where we'll also be picking you up. So when you have your times and you're looking, the same place we're dropping you is the same place we're picking you up. But it's that relationship with the bed tax collector.
So it's really it's designed more to service the people that are in a lodging facility or paying, the bed tax in a large community.
Absolutely.
So if you're just a second homeowner and you just almost have to just find out that, hey, did you know there's a stop at Pompano Joe's? We can walk up there, jump on this shuttle, and go to Seaside and back?
That's correct. Either find that out, organically, or find out because they're working specifically with the TDC or the app or what they follow on social media. But yes, certainly those individual houses, that's in other words, a problem that I'm sure logistically we're open to trying to solve, but I don't know that we all have at this point because some of the spread out nature of just second homes isn't conducive for frequent riders in that sense. And getting like posts in the ground require county approval and road, and there's a whole another layer to that would cause obviously far more delay and
Okay, that's next year. Down the road.
Those could certainly be there, certainly. Yeah.
Any other questions? You all ready to move forward?
I do think the more you could shed light on what the cost would be, it sounds like it's a negotiated individual basis, but if as someone who runs lodging establishments, it sure would be nice to know how much the cost is.
How much the cost per lodging unit is?
Yeah, this resort service fee.
The real thing is there's no real set fee only because it's what works for you. In other words, if I went in there and just said it's going to be $2 or whatever per room, that may or may not work for you. And so what I didn't want to ever do, as we've done in Okaloosa County, is have a partner say, sorry, I don't want to work because that doesn't work for me. So it's not that we're trying to get the most money, it's that we're trying to find out what works with the actual lodging partner. Some require less, some require more. Our goal is to try and figure out what works best for everybody. And so our model has just been whatever will work for you. Let's see if that works for us. Now in this particular case, it's a little easier because there's some offset funding with the marketing component.
In Okaloosa County, though, you should have some idea of what that average is.
Oh, absolutely. It ends up...
Can you share that with
Yeah,
us?
the average has been about $2 per room per night. That's been the average.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that has to be
I understand.
specific.
I want to get it, and I
Yeah.
think that's what he was after.
Yeah, the average has
Some kind of
been,
idea
the
what
average,
it
I
comes out.
apologize, the average has been about $2 per room per night.
Okay.
Depending on the size of the unit. Obviously, some places have way
Depends on
more
how
and
we
they
ask
could
the
be,
question.
they could be less. And I apologize. And the hours, just to address that, we have determined over the years of doing this that earlier is why we did the 10 a.m. There's a lot of people that want to go to the beach, and at our first stops, we have multiple people, with their coolers and chairs ready to go. So we want to definitely make sure that we're starting in that morning time so people can get to the beach. And then the later times were primarily more for Friday, Saturday, but it's the idea of people who've went to the restaurants and bars to give them a little bit more leeway than just 10 o'clock, especially since it doesn't seem to get dark until about 9:30 anyway during the summertime. So we try and give it a little bit later time as well.
Right.
Which
Okay.
then gives more exposure.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right,
Thank
that's
you.
it. Thank you. Thanks, Nathan. All right, with that being said, we have two proposals here. Is there any additional questions, or what's the pleasure of the board?
I have a couple of comments, if I may.
Okay.
I think obviously, running until, if one of the goals is to get people drinking off the roads, running till midnight is kind of a necessity, being that the restaurants don't close till 10. And I think, I commend both these guys. They've really done a lot of work over the last couple of years to get to this point and put a good project on the table. And I know it's been hard, and I do commend you on that. I think, however, it falls short of not your project, but we are falling short of identifying what the real need in the county is, and we're allowing the private sector to design a program for us, when we actually need to design a program that fits the county. And if we're going to support someone else doing it besides the county, then let them bid and say, okay, we'll do this for you. Again, we've been going over this year after year and putting a Band-Aid on this, and I think probably our job is to perhaps suggest to the BCC to put together a committee to come up with this long-term plan, because we're going to give these guys some money, and I'm somewhat in support of that for this year. But what if they say next year it goes back up to $500,000 and we're out of the system all of a sudden? We don't have a system anymore. I believe that if they do, we can probably come to some agreement if they agree to go to all of the beach accesses, neighborhood and regional, and hit all the beach accesses as a baseline. If they can pick up other vendors to generate some other money, I think it's probably a good deal. But as a baseline, if we're going to buy into this, we need to come up with some criteria that you have to hit these beach accesses, you have to have an app, and make it rider friendly and promote the county.
I think again, it's important to know the hours, all of those things, but you're getting into operational aspects, and I think from a marketing standpoint, we would need to know how many people are we hitting, the demographics, all of those things based on marketing and not operational. That's what worries me, that we're opening ourselves up for a lawsuit to pay attorney fees for somebody else. I think Mr. Bagby made that comment, and that's what worries me.
Well, and that's a good point, but as we've empowered Jay to go and do this, and get the information from the Attorney General and what we really can do by wording it, however, we need to word it for the BCC to make decisions. Much less, Jim's making a good point, but I think what we have to do is we've talked about, we've got to start somewhere. And I think the idea is the committees, or the director and his team is kind of giving these fellows some idea or direction of what our needs are and what they've probably heard from us before. And this is kind of, I think, where we've derived what they have presented to us in most cases. Jay?
And just one quick thing to Jim's comment of the neighborhood beach accesses. I think, and I don't want to speak for these two gentlemen, but I just think logistically that would be difficult for them with the number of buses that's being proposed, because we have 50 neighborhood beach accesses on the beach. So I just think if we're going to stop at every one of those, I mean, you're going to be waiting 2 hours for a bus versus 30 minutes. So, I mean, I think big picture down the road, I think that's certainly something that we can look at, but I think with what these gentlemen are proposing, I just don't know if that is something that can play into consideration with only 7 vehicles. So,
And also you've got, where you pull in to pick up the people, all those locations.
And that's kind of to my point, is that's what needs to be laid out by the county.
Right.
For the future of what we're doing, for parking and for riding and for drop-off.
It's a great point, great point.
and I agree, and Jim and I have spoken about this, and, we actually have some things in the works right now with parking that I'll be bringing forward to the BCC at next week's meeting, and so I think we'll be getting some things moving with parking in short order. Obviously, transportation is important, so I think we have some good things coming into the fold here, and so hopefully, I do like the idea of a committee, so maybe we can start looking big picture at both those items together, transportation and parking, because they're really important.
So you can merge them together. And I think the 10 a.m. to 12 is a good time frame, myself. I think Jim made a good point about that drive, or that evening traffic where, you're drinking and, then, you're at a restaurant, that's about the time to come home. So
10 a.m. is a good time to hop a shuttle and go to the beach. too.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think the decision that we're being asked to make is what kind of product between these 2 providers do we want to put our advertising on? To Mark's point, the quality is important. Our brand, we have to protect it. So as I look through all of these pros and cons, the way I look at it is where would I want to put my brand? On what kind of vehicle, on what kind of service, on what kind of reputation. I think that's the decision that we have to make between these 2 people who have made a commitment to come forward and provide this kind of service.
Jay, a real quick question. This has not come up in either one of the proposals, but I can see, let me just ask the question. Everything that we do today has to comply with ADA. And do either one of these proposals comply with that?
You know what, that's a very good question, I'm not sure. ADA compliance on the buses, are there any ADA, on yours you have ADA?
Yes, we have availability, we have that as well.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
They both do, they said.
They both, on all their vehicles?
On all of them, or just certain ones?
No, just certain ones, if a customer calls in, we can dispatch that vehicle. We would have one vehicle regularly running.
So it's both the same, where y'all both can, it sounds like they both can dispatch a vehicle for an ADA.
Okay, it just had not been brought up, and I'd hate to
It's a good point.
be voting on something and then, do end up in a lawsuit because we didn't conform to the ADA.
Because we pride ourselves in servicing, handicapped at this point, especially
Yeah,
our beach
very much
accesses and all.
Jay, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, I think these are important points. As part of any agreement, we need to make sure there's a performance criteria in regards to route times, minimum number of hours per day, minimum number of hours per week, et cetera, along with some of the highlights that have been mentioned.
I agree totally, and also ridership. I mean, what's the ridership like on certain days, certain hours? Those are all things that I'd like to examine. So like I said earlier, as we move forward, big picture down the road, we can have that information. So when we're saying, okay, what's an effective route? What's an effective time of day? Do we need to be at 10 o'clock in the morning? Do we need to be at midnight? So those are kind of some things that we can start to get the answers to with this season, with this pilot program. So I think that's very important, Mark.
I think to Pam's point, though, that's not our job. And to Gary's point as well.
But it would give us some
Our
information.
job is to whether or not we want to wrap that van with our logo.
We'll wrap it. And they can provide that information to us.
But the
Oh,
information
absolutely.
we-
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're going to be the ones collecting that
Yeah,
information. The
they'll
TDC's
collect-
not
yeah,
going to.
I mean, this has to
I
go
mean-
to BCC, and they've got to make this decision,
Right.
really, not us.
But the point is that we do want that data. If this is going to be a pilot program that's going to propel us into the future, the data that they can provide us for this pilot program certainly will give us some direction.
I would suggest that you, this is going to before the BCC. Let me make that part of the BCC's request for that, for that part. This is simply to decide if we're spending our advertising dollars on something that we want to spend it on. And that, I assure you, that will be brought up in the BCC.
Jay, can you
Thank
clarify a
Tony.
little more on marketing? I just didn't hear a lot about how this program's going to get marketed. How are people going to be made aware that there is a shuttle?
Well,
is it going to be us, or is it going to be the provider?
I think it needs to be a combination, because obviously, I mean, no offense to these vendors, but, I mean, we have a little more pull with our bed tax collectors than these folks do. So I think if we can help push that messaging out of, hey, we have a shuttle, we'd like to have your assistance in promoting the shuttle. And I have spoken to some bed tax collectors on this, and they are very excited about it. And they said, you know what, we can promote it in our welcome packets, we can promote it in emails that we send out to our clients, we can have it in the rooms when they get there. So lots of different levels for different bed tax collectors. Some are like, well, we don't really want to put it in our rooms, but we're happy to put it in a welcome packet. So at different levels, we have where we can tap those visitors. And so I think that's important. So I think it needs to almost be tag team between us and either one of these vendors moving forward. We have some billboards in town, and as we're sitting here talking about this, I think, we have the Relax You've Arrived messaging on there, but perhaps we can promote these buses and shuttles to people as they're driving into town of park your car and take the shuttle type of a message on there. And I think that's something we can certainly explore in the near future if we decide to move forward with this program. So I think social media is another way. I think signage, I do think we need to do something and have stops. So if it's at the beach accesses, we need a sign in the ground saying trolley stop, whatever we want to brand this thing, we need that. And also I think the partners along the way need that there. So if it's a Newman Daily property and they need a designated place at their property where people know they can go catch this shuttle and hop on and drive down the road to get to point B.
I think that's critical.
The South Walton, Visit South Walton app has never really taken off or been utilized completely. It might be a way to get more engagement on that app.
I agree, and that's actually something that I've asked of Zender in the probably past, 2 or 3 months, is to really let's look at what we can do with this app. And so that Zender has sent us a proposal back of what it would take to kind of get that app running. And I think we need to look, in my opinion, our app right now is almost like a mini website, and that's not what apps are effective for. I mean, apps need to provide a direct service, in my opinion. And if you want a mini website, well, go to our mobile website. Why do you need to go to our app for that? So I think for some key things of, maybe in the future it could be where there are parking spaces available. So you could look that up on your phone and go, oh, okay, wow, look at that. There's no parking spots at Ed Wallene, so I got to go down the road and park it someplace else. So I think for our app, it's really what services can be provided to our guests.
Snorkel Reef tour.
Send the trolley to the roof, right?
Yeah.
You go,
I don't think I can say that legally.
All right. Let's see, what's the pleasure of the board? What's your choice on the motion?
And just real quick, Mr. Finch came up and he did say that the people that he has on board with his program have agreed to market it within their entities.
Okay, all right.
But I would suspect that's going to be the case with anybody who's on board, because that's the whole reason why they're participating, is they want to drive traffic to their venues.
Right.
So,
Makes sense.
Jay, is our task to vote on whether to spend the money to advertise or to select which provider?
well, it's both. I think it's to select a provider and, then make the recommendation to the BCC on whatever that provider is.
Okay. It's our task.
All right, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we accept the proposal, and the reason I'm saying this is because I'm just not crazy about the resort fee thing. I make a motion that we accept a proposal from Sunshine, and that he increases hours from noon to midnight.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Let me ask a question. I'm new to this. And I guess, I think the point that Jim made is great, is that if we go down this road, we need to have the understanding that we're going to look at a larger, more sophisticated, comprehensive transport program going forward. And can we all kind of concur that conversation will continue, or does that need to be part of the motion?
Probably doesn't need to be part of the motion, because I thought that Commissioner Anderson, he's going to bring that part of it up in the BCC meeting.
I'll bring that up.
You'll cover us on that.
But do we need to recommend to the BCC to form committee, or are you going to do that?
I can do that, or we can make a motion on that.
I'll point
I
that
need to
out.
correct my original motion. I
Right.
said noon to midnight, I meant 10 to midnight.
10 to midnight.
10 to midnight.
And I'll second that
Hold on.
amendment.
I want to make a point real quick.
This is discussion.
Mr. Wilson just came up and just pointed out that the fee is not required. So he just wanted to point that out to you.
We
So,
do understand
yeah.
that, yes, and that's clear.
All right, for simplicity purposes right now, we'll just keep it at this. So
Okay.
you're recommending that we
My
move forward
motion
with...
is to forward to the BCC proposal from Sunshine, but to change the hours from his original proposed 10 till 10 to 10 to midnight.
10 to midnight.
Okay, 10 to
And
midnight.
that's
10 a.m.
That's
to
what-
12 midnight.
12.
10 a.m. till midnight.
10 a.m., okay, 10 a.m. to 12. And Commissioner Anderson is going to provide more detail to the BCC on those other items that we talked about also. Okay, so that's the motion.
We just changed the hours of his proposal, though.
Right, right.
Yeah, right.
Even.
Yeah, I mean, I just called Mr. Finch just because, I mean, this is his business, and so.
Let's just do this. Let's just, this recommendation of Sunshine Shuttle, and let the BCC do the recommendation of the time.
I'm perfectly okay with that.
You okay with that? All right, you want to
Yeah.
Okay. Sunshine's times were 12 in the afternoon to 10 p.m. That's what we originally proposed for 168 was the amount that we were asking for as far as marketing. Okay, I'm just going to say this real quickly. We've got 12 commitments. We've got 60 days. 60 days to get this. The other vendor does not have one commitment. Okay? So I will tell you that we cannot do that at that price. So I turn it back to the board to make your decision with and go with the other vendor or whoever you want to go with.
What were your hours?
From 12 in the afternoon to 10 p.m. at night for 168. Okay.
All right, I'll restate my motion that we go with Sunshine Shuttle, and we won't address the hours, and I think that we'll refer that to the BCC and then make the decision, because I'd like to see it run to midnight. So that's my motion. Do you still second that, Tony?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, we got a
For
motion.
discussion.
Yeah. We got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? on this?
Just one thing, Mr. Wilson did step forward, and he did say that he does have committed partners. He just wanted to point that out as what John just, in reference to what John just said. So, anyway.
Well, for the record, in this discussion, I feel 12 to 10 is a short period of time. It's just an afternoon. Correctly, 10 a.m. to 12 midnight would be a better operations period of time for these buses. So, I don't want to say if he can't do it, I mean, it's obviously, if it's going to cost us more, how much more, that's going to be a
I
question.
got a motion.
What's that?
How about we agree to move the marketing piece of this forward and send it to the BCC and let them decide the hours and who's getting this job?
So not make a recommendation.
Right.
Okay.
Not make a recommendation on one of the two, because obviously we're split right here, but to make the recommendation that we will support the marketing piece of this, but let the BCC decide
Who the vendor's going to be.
who the vendor's gonna be and what the specs of, that they're getting.
That would just, put it back to them. Your motion would just be to authorize TDC dollars for whichever vendor they chose.
Correct.
Correct.
Richard would
So
have to withdraw.
Withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
And I'll withdraw the second.
You withdraw the second, now make another motion.
Now,
You want to make that motion?
You go ahead and make
Jim?
that motion, Jim.
What he said.
Anyway, yeah, not to muddle it up, but any way that I can recuse myself of any
To
motion,
allow-
because I think that the way it's being presented now is just jeopardizing a lawsuit. So,
That's a question for council.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
yeah, I'm going to recuse myself from any motion because as of right now, the way it sounds, it is jeopardizing a lawsuit, in my opinion, the way it's being presented, the way we're motioning. So,
But the motion would be to recommend to the BCC to use TDC dollars for advertising on a try or bust for the vendor that they choose for this year, or 1 year.
Agreement, right.
Yes.
Right. That's his motion that Jim Richard's gonna make.
Can you live with that, Gary?
All right. You okay with that, Gary? That cleans it up. The
That way we
BCC
don't
takes
have
it from
any-
there.
I'm still pondering it, to be very candid with you. I just,
I'll just tell you
It's
my
not sitting
opinion.
well with me.
I understand the importance of timing and the immediacy of this decision, but we haven't investigated it, studied it enough, added the detail. We should be proposing to the Board of County Commissioners as experts in tourism as to what this transportation program should be for our users. And in my opinion, this should go out via an RFP to all the transportation providers to bid accordingly. And I think the amount is excessive per hour. I think everybody's in agreement on transportation, and we need to address the transportation issue. But I think clearly there's not enough meat on the bones for us to make a decision at that time. At least that's my decision.
and again, the word transportation keeps coming up when it should be about marketing on the transport. That's what worries me. So,
Well, as the motion was stated, marketing on with these transportation companies and the BCC will make that decision.
so then,
That's pretty much what it's down to. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
out
you're
of
right.
transportation, we're just marketing.
there's not enough marketing information for me to make that decision, so nay for me.
Is there
All right,
anything
so
else
wait,
that we
wait, we
can
don't-
provide to you to help you make that decision? I don't know if we can provide it
Yes,
right now, but
I need more information based on demographics, the clientele. There's a lot of factors. I can't even name them all right now. It's too muddled.
Well, there's a lot. It's always been a lot. And at this point, if they're willing to put forth the operations to do this for now, and we can market on them, and we can get more information through what's required through the BCC for us to be able to make decisions from next year on, if that's the case. We're doing marketing on it at this point and helping out with apps and try to figure out how to make the system work. But Mark made a good point. We need all the details, and Gary too, for that matter. We gotta have details. So is it gonna be a requirement, maybe from the BCC, for those companies to provide that information, make sure we get the customer counts on each of the vehicles or each of the buses, so we know what stops need a 20-person bus instead of a 14? Maybe there's a lot more at one location than another. So those are all what we gotta gather in this pilot program. It's not there for us to get. So that'll be a requirement that we work with the transportation groups. Can the transportation groups do that for us? I'm sure they can.
Well, this is not a pilot transit program, though.
It's a marketing program.
It's a marketing program. And the way I see what has been provided, there are a number of things we try to tell our tourists. We try to convey to them. Safety, my goodness, safety. Look at the number of people that don't know what the flag system is, and how do we continue to do that? So TDC has done that in a lot of really positive ways. This is another way to get the education out there on these vehicles, inside these vehicles, and that's where we ought to be concentrating on the marketing part of it. We're marketing a message. We're not marketing as much the TDC brand, which I actually wasn't comfortable with the last time we reviewed brand marketing. I believed that if the people were already here, you didn't need to tell them they were here. But this is a different message that I think Jay is trying to help us promote. And this advertising vehicle, no pun intended, is supposed to help with that. and I think we need to get behind it.
All right. We have a motion on the floor.
Do we have a second?
And do we have a second? We have a second?
I need to hear the motion again, please.
Motion is
Provide basically you're recommending to the board that you would use TDC dollars for advertising on a trolley or a bus of the vendor of their choosing.
Okay.
For 1 year, for the 1 year period.
For the 1 year period. And that's Jim Richard. Do we have a second?
Well, it's a 3-month period, right? 99 days?
Yeah.
Correct. Well, yeah. A season.
Not- One season, not 1 year.
Yeah, 1 season.
Right.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second?
No, he made the
I
motion.
made the motion.
I know, he made a motion. Who makes it?
I'll second that
You
motion.
second that motion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Mark and David, nay. All right, motion carries.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Do we need to follow this with a motion for the BCC to organize a committee to look at a future park and ride program?
I can bring that up, but it might not hurt to have a recommendation from this board.
I make a motion that the BCC create a committee to make a long-term plan for park and ride for Walton County.
Amen.
I'll second that, and
We have a second.
I do.
All in
Okay, I just
favor,
want to
say
know if
aye.
Jim wants to be the chairman of that.
Yeah. He is the new chairman of it. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, hot dog. Item number 5, old business. We have updates from Taylor Engineering.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Matt Trammell, Taylor Engineering. Just a very brief update. I was actually hoping you would call for a break. I'm going to make this very quick.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you a quick update on the HSDR project. As you're all aware, the Corps of Engineers had designed us a beach restoration project. We went out for easements a year and a half, 2 years ago. Those easements came back to the BCC last March, I believe it was, and the decision was made to table the project. Very difficult decision by the BCC, seeing that the lack of support for the project. We are still working with the Corps of Engineers to keep that project somewhat alive, if you will, but yet still tabled should we have a natural disaster or a severe storm event. We received a request from the Corps to shift it over to a inactive status, to where it's still a Corps of Engineers project. However, the funding source will be withdrawn and shifted over to other projects. So this basically would set us back a year. We're still working on the details with the Corps. We want to find out all the information we can on what exactly our options are, and then we plan on bringing that back to you and back to the BCC for a final vote. So that's just to give you an update on what's happening, what's moving forward. We're also working on a public workshop. I believe this is tentatively scheduled for May 10th. We certainly want to keep all of our beachfront property owners fully aware of everything that's going on with the beach and coastal management program, find out exactly from them what they would like to see. We have been working at pushing this as quickly as we can. However, with the beach activities ordinance that came up with customary use, there's been a lot of beach-related items on everyone's agenda, so unfortunately we've delayed this a little bit, but it's going to be coming up here within the next month. So we will inform everyone at the Beach Management Committee next month, and then have the meeting shortly thereafter. And then the beach project permitting, as I mentioned, the Corps had withdrawn the permit, the DEP permit for the HSDR project. We're working with DEP as well as the Corps of Engineers to go ahead and pull that permit ourselves. So the county had authorization for basically a county-wide project. Should we have a major storm event, that'll provide us a lot of flexibility moving forward. Should we need to do a dune restoration project, a beach restoration project, segmented projects, having that authorization and having the environmental analyses done and formalized will really put us on good ground moving forward. So
I think it's not should, it's when.
unfortunately, I think you're correct. That's right. So, but yes, that permitting process is going to be sometime in, DEP has done a lot of the review, but the Corps of Engineers doesn't permit Corps of Engineers projects. So we're going to need to go through that entire review with the Corps of Engineers, and they are not the most expeditious agency. So it's going to take us some time. So the sooner we can get started, the sooner we can have the public workshop, the better off we'll all be. So that's our path. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And for the new council members, again, Matt Trammell, I'm our senior coastal engineer with Taylor. Feel free to contact Jay or Brian if you ever have any questions coastal management related. I'm here to serve the board, so whatever I can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
There's a notice for a public hearing regarding levying that 3rd cent. I don't know if that has any relation, but it's going to be taking, or proposing to take some funds from the beach renourishment to purchase property, is my understanding. Yeah, so I don't know if that's another issue altogether, but I've got a concern about that.
So we need to attend.
Pardon?
We need to attend, make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right, any other questions? You got any questions? Zinder. Ms. Catherine.
Again, Catherine Andrew with Zender Communications. Here to give you our marketing updates from February and March. Start off with a topic that we were just discussing a little bit, beach safety. So we kick off our paid media promotion of our beach safety program at the beginning of March. And this year we evaluated the program last year, all of the placements that performed best, and reallocated our dollars accordingly. We have a number of high-performing digital placements, and we've also added weather.com, which was performing very well on the brand side. We've now added the text flag messaging to that placement, and then also some Twitter advertising for beach safety as well, since that's such a great quick message platform. For added value, we're actually presenting this a little bit differently this month. Our paid media placement to date is just over $2.6 million, and our added value to date is over $1.8 million, for a total media value to date of $4.5 million, and we have only paid for $2.6 million of that. So we're continuing to achieve high added value placements at no cost. And then also had Coastal Living come in town as an added value placement. They sent their people here to do some Snapchat stories as well as Instagram stories, which are now becoming very popular on a platform, Instagram, that we were already very active on. So that was great to see, and those are some examples of the Snapchats that they did while in town. Our winter co-op digital program ended in March. These are the February results, so these aren't even the final results of it. But partners buy into the co-op interactive packages based on guaranteed leads, and then Zender assigns a leads goal to each of them that is about 500 leads over what we guarantee within the program. And as you can see on the right side, before the program even ended, every partner achieved over 100% of the goal, which was already exceeding that guarantee. We do provide reports to each of the partners at the end of each of the programs, so they will be receiving those reports this month with examples of the creative that ran, and then also the results from every placement. Our brand digital performance, we're still continuing to do very well, over 10 million total impressions, 55,000 plus clicks. Continuing to be over that click-through rate of our industry, and then our best performing creatives, Destination Departure, and then our Lose Yourself ad this month. On search engine marketing, this is an overview of our paid search program. So performing well above that industry average, continuing to also hit our click-through rates goals. And our top performing keyword categories include things like 16 beaches, romantic vacations, Florida vacations, groups and meetings, and weddings as well. On the creative front, we had two signature events that we developed creative for in the last couple of months, Sandestin Wine Festival, which ran on local radio and Pandora audio and display advertising in these key markets, Atlanta, Birmingham, Dallas, Houston, Montgomery, Nashville, and New Orleans, March 13th through March 26th. And we flight these 5 weeks prior to the event to give planning time to a lot of those drive markets so they're able to come in town for them. 30A Wine Festival was another one. And those Pandora banner ads do click through to the event page on the Visit South Walton website. For social media, you'll see our year-over-year growth here continuing to trend well on all of our channels. Instagram continues to be our top performer with 93% growth year-over-year. And then each month we typically look at PPI, which is a page performance index. And diving a little bit deeper into that, we don't love that metric because it skews numbers a little bit based on the size of channels. So if you have a post that had the same number of interactions as another page who has fewer likes, their page performance index is higher and the numbers are just skewed a little bit. So what we wanted to do was kind of pull this apart and look at page growth on Facebook and then also page post interactions on Facebook to see where we're trending against our competitors. So for page growth, we're right at that competitor line here for February. And then engagement is where we were seeing, and this is what these two metrics allow us to see, that's where we're seeing that drop off a little bit. So what we did was we worked with PJ and her team to look at our unallocated budget and put more promotion behind our Facebook posts because that's what our competitors are doing. If we look at what they're achieving as far as post interactions, it's obviously all because of paid promotion. Facebook is a pay-to-play world these days. So we're continuing to put more paid behind all of our posts, strategic posts. A lot of our event posts are getting more paid promotion, and we're continuing to see that number grow. For content marketing, these are our content articles for February. We also have March and April, or April starting to go live now. And you can see all of these stories on visitsouthwalton.com if you go to the tips and trips section. And they do continue to have a high level of engagement. That's what our focus of our e-newsletter monthly is. And we continue to just find interesting topics to tell our consumers about. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? No, ma'am, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Downs.
Good morning, Philip Downs, Downs and St. Germain Research. I'm going to be sharing with you today some documentation of 2016 and focusing more on fall of 2016. And these numbers basically reflect on the health of tourism in Walton County and the value of tourism in Walton County. We're going to be looking at calendar year 2016, calendar year, not fiscal year. So we see the total economic impact of tourism, over $3.2 billion, and 2.1 in direct spending, and then we have the induced and indirect effects of tourism spending as this money circulates through our businesses. Almost 3.7 million visitors, and we can trend that over the last few years, and we are experiencing double-digit growth annually. And each dollar, or each visitor who comes, is contributing $870 into Walton County's economy. And all the spending and activity by visitors creates over 20,000 jobs in our community, paying out nearly $600 million in wages. And so as you look at a busy beach during spring break, we have 178 visitors that you can see, and they're creating one job. And the job growth, 19,600 in 2014 to 20,700. Those are direct jobs from spending, and then if we factor in the induced and indirect effects, then the job total is nearly 27,000. TDT has been growing at double digits. In fact, if you just saw the February figures, up over 6% from last year. Fiscal year to date, TDT is up about 13.5%. So we're in a situation basically of managing growth and trying to attract folks during shoulder seasons, because we're basically maxed out during spring break and in the summer. So each dollar that Visit South Walton spends on marketing is bringing in $273 of spending from our visitors. This slide is a little busy, but basically what it says is that there is considerable value to Walton County government, not the Walton County economy, but to the government itself. And we factor in not just the fees and taxes that visitors spend, but we also factor in the cost to Walton County government of servicing these visitors. So if you look at infrastructure, sewer, transportation, law enforcement, all of the services that are required by visitors when they're here and the cost to Walton County government from that, there's a net benefit to Walton County government of nearly $21 million in 2016. So most of the spending by visitors, accommodations and restaurants and shopping are the three big categories. The spending per trip, $4,800 plus per trip. And this is an interesting statistic here. If we look at all the retail spending in Walton County, visitors account for 65% of that. Looking at the profile, I'll just pick out a few stats here. Average household income, nearly $170,000. So as we continue to attract more visitors, more importantly, we're attracting higher spending visitors. 86% of them drove. 95% will return. So we worry about their experiences here, and we've not done any in-depth studies of that visitor experience, but 95% indicate that they'll return. And they're coming from primarily the Southeast, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, Florida. Those are key states. You can see 72% came from the South. Atlanta remains our cash cow. Dallas and Houston are moving up. And then we have old standbys in the Southeast like Birmingham, Nashville, and so on. They come here obviously for the beach, and then they eat in our restaurants. And they're talking to friends and families. And they're going online, searching Google and Yahoo and Bing to find out information. And many of these people are planning 4, 6, 7 months out to bring their entire family from Houston or Dallas or Atlanta. Most of them are driving, 86, and a majority of those who did fly in came into ECP. A little bit of GIS mapping here. We see spending per trip. This is correlated with how far people are coming. If you go down towards the bottom, Tallahassee, visitors are only spending about $2,500 here. People from the Midwest are spending $8,000 to $10,000. And then we need to continue to attract first-time visitors. And here you see that percentage broken down. Kansas City, Chicago, Houston. And then the median income, we have some cities where our visitors have greater incomes. Austin, Houston are a couple of those. And then we go down in some of the smaller southeastern cities like Pensacola, Montgomery, Tallahassee, Panama City have lower household incomes. So any questions about calendar year 2016 before we focus on fall? Some encouraging numbers here. I'll just focus on a few numbers on this slide. Visitors up nearly 10%, direct spending up nearly 10%, RevPAR up nearly 10%. Highly correlated. Household income in the fall, a little lower than the calendar year for 2016, 161.8. Our first-time visitors, 20%, so we continue to attract new folks to our community. In the fall, 93% said they would return. And they're coming in the fall from primarily the Southeast. And they are doing basically the same things in the fall. A little fewer go to the beach in the fall. 84% drive in the fall as opposed to 86% for the whole calendar year of 2016. And the average spending in the fall was a little lower than for the entire year. The stays in the summer and in the spring are a little longer, and they're spending more money during those times. Fall is down a little bit from those figures. They're still planning 4 to 6 months out for fall vacations. They're still talking to friends and Googling. And all of this comes from our surveys. We do about 750 surveys per quarter with our visitors. And the last report here is a market penetration analysis, where we basically look at our visitors. We look at our target audience, 100,000 plus household income, and we see basically what percent have come and how many more could we expect to come. And from this analysis, we basically dispelled the old myth that Atlanta was closed for South Walton. Many people at one point thought, hey, we can't squeeze any more folks out of Atlanta. Well, this analysis indicates that that's not true. Our penetration rate in Atlanta is about 30%. And so we've got over 1 million folks who make over $100,000 a year in Atlanta who aren't coming here. And so that is our core market. That is our best market. And then we look at the number of potential visitors, 100,000 plus household income. I mean, it's pretty exciting to look at New York City, 5.4 million people with over 100,000, but our penetration in New York City is 0.2%. And so we don't benefit from the word of mouth communication in New York City like we do in Atlanta, where 30% have come here. And so we have those 30% talking to their friends, and their friends and family are the #1 source of information in planning vacations. So in a market like Atlanta, we can capitalize on our penetration rate. And from this analysis, in working with PJ, the TDC has decided that Atlanta is the key core market for next year, and Houston is the key emerging market. Houston has enough of a penetration rate, about 7%, so we're getting some of that word of mouth, but it also has high potential. Houston, 1.6 million more visitors with household incomes of 100,000 plus, who we could expect to come. So
Is Houston more of a drive or a fly market?
it's more of a drive. Excuse me, it's a little more of a drive, but we have direct airlift, and so the potential's there. So any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Ms. Carly.
Good morning.
Good
I
morning.
think I can still say good morning,
Yeah,
right?
you're still so far.
Carly McMillan, Interim Director of Sales. We'll start with the group sales updates. Back in February, the sales team attended Rendezvous South, which is produced by Convention South magazine. We opened it up as a booth share opportunity, and Sandusky Golf and Beach Resort joined us at that show. So over a period of 2 days, we had 20 appointments, and we received 3 RFPs. Upcoming this month, we will attend Plan Your Meetings Live. It is a partnership with MPI in Chicago, Illinois. So it's a one-day event, all day. It's basically a speed dating session, so we will meet with every single meeting planner in attendance. So we're excited about that. And then in May, we will be attending Capital Events in Tallahassee, and this is a new show for us, as well as the others. And that show is focusing on association and corporate planners. For the travel trade missions, in March, South Walton hit the road with Visit Florida, along with 9 other Florida partners, to go to Chicago. Over 2 days, we held 2 events with the ASA Mid-America travel agents. So during those 2 days, we met with over 60 travel agents, and each of the Florida partners was able to show a brief video and give an overview of what the destination has to offer. And then this week, Visit Florida is doing an Ohio Roadshow in Cleveland and Cincinnati. And since we were not able to attend, they do open it up to brochure distribution, which we are participating in. So each of the attendees will receive our collateral, and then we'll also receive the list of the agents so that we can follow up and provide more information to them for their clients. For the leisure missions, in March we attended the Louisville Wine, Women, and Shoes event. This event drew 360 highly affluent women. Through the sponsorship, we provided a Sandestin Golf and Beach Resort vacation package in the live auction, and it went for $1,600. And the event raised over $320,000 for their charity. Next, this weekend, we will be attending the Austin Ultimate Women's Expo. It's a 2-day show that draws almost 20,000 women in attendance, so it'll be a very busy show for us, so we're looking forward to it. We've attended the Houston Ultimate Women's Expo, and it was very well attended and great for us. And then later this month, we will be attending the Birmingham Wine, Women, and Shoes. This is the first Wine, Women, and Shoes in Birmingham, Alabama. Due to the venue, they capped it at 300 tickets, and it has already sold out. So we're looking forward to that as well. Editorial coverage in your packet, we provided you with the latest coverage for meetings. Both of these articles are a result of interviews held with our staff. The Sales Lunch and Learn in February, we held a meeting Sales Lunch and Learn, and we invited all the sales professionals in South Walton. We had a really good turnout. The meeting was an open discussion forum. We wanted to get their input on where we were focusing our efforts and where they were focusing their efforts so that we can combine the two and focus on like audiences. And as a follow-up to that meeting, I sent out a survey monkey to all the DOSs in South Walton to gain additional recommendations for the planning of the 2018 fiscal budget. Any questions on group sales before I move to Visitor Center? Okay. In February, the Visitor Center hosted 1,967 visitors in February. It was a 22% decrease over last year, but we had a 129% increase in merchandise sales for a monthly total of $38.46. In March, the Visitor Center hosted 1,776 visitors, which was a 22% increase over last year, and we had a 117% increase in merchandise sales with a total of $4,253. To date, the record shows that we've had 8,075 visitors and $16,433 in merchandise sales for this current fiscal. Also in your packet, I wanted to share with you the recent TripAdvisor reviews for the Visitor Information Center. I don't want to brag, but our Visitor Center does an outstanding job catering to all the guests that do come through our doors. So wanted to highlight that. They're always excited when one comes through, so I wanted to share it with you as well. And lastly, our Visitor Center events. Our Visitor Center will be going to the Visit Florida 231 Welcome Center 2017 Spring Festival. This is an annual festival that they hold each year, and we like to go and attend with the other Florida partners to promote spring and fall travel to the destination. And also, if you're a Visit Florida partner, you're able to participate in their Welcome Center lobby booth program. So in April, we're going to take advantage of this opportunity and attend the I-10 Welcome Center, and they'll be manning a booth and again promoting spring and fall travel. And lastly, in May, the Visit Florida 231 Welcome Center crew will come over to South Walton and spend a day with us. where we will tour them through the destination and just familiarize them with everything that we have to offer. Last summer we did it with the I-10 Welcome Center, and this year we'll be doing it with 231. And that is all that I have for you.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Right. Who's next, Peter?
Hello again. One of my interim titles is Director of Communications. So I'd love to share with you a little bit about the communications program. And I also wanted to kind of step back and take a look at where we've been and where we're going with communications. It's a huge opportunity for us to interface with the media. We do have a new working relationship, a recent relationship. About 6 months ago, we engaged Turner Public Relations out of New York to represent Visit South Walton. And they have really stepped up to the plate to work in partnership with us to develop a broader awareness with the national media about the offerings of Visit South Walton. So we're excited to look at the production of that and really to talk about the initial evolution of the working relationship. We've really renewed our focus and efforts in public relations activities. One of the first things that we worked on together in collaboration with Turner is directing a new communications strategic plan to outline where we are going, the top 100 media outlets that we'll be working with, some of the programs throughout the year, of course, the media that will be meeting, desk side visits, and that's where you get together with a journalist in their place of business and really talk about the aspects that interest that particular journalist's publication or media outlet. So we're really doing a lot of more planning, one-on-one efforts and so forth. In just the first few months of their contract period, we've generated 15 articles about the destination, reached more than 41 million folks, 41 million impressions, and created an earned media value of $586,000. And earned media is if you look at the opportunity to get a story in print or online, you look at what it might have cost you to pay for the same advertising space. So this has additional reach. It is a plan that's complementary to the advertising and marketing plan. So all of these programs at the TDC are very well integrated. The current story angles that they were working on in the last 30 days, or excuse me, the last 90 days, were spring break travel, all natural adventure, regional weekend escapes, and we also continued to follow up on our presence with IMM. We were at International Media Marketplace in New York in partnership with Turner. We had a representative there, Kelly Carter, attended on behalf of Visit South Walton. We had Turner there as well, and all day long we did, I call it sort of speed dating opportunities with the media to sit down and introduce our destination and story ideas and topics, and that was a mutual appointment setting opportunity. So as a result of that particular effort, we have developed a much broader list of targeted and interested media in the destination. We continue to feed the funnel with story ideas, topics of conversation, following up on their needs. So we have much more interaction with this media as well. We have some upcoming media visits. Wendy Altschuler, who's a freelancer with the Daily Meal and Red Tricycle, is coming in market. We have 3 other representatives coming in market this month from various freelance opportunities. And we also have an upcoming press trip, and this is kind of exciting. It's an arts and culture focused trip, and we're going to hold that May 18th through the 21st, and we are targeting writers from top national and key market publications. We're very refined in who we are inviting and why. So we want to make sure that we have the right media attending. This will be an elite group. As soon as we have the media opportunities set, if you will, in the funnel, then we will be extending opportunities for our partners to participate on what we call a familiarization program. We bring them in market, we wine them, we dine them, we educate them, they participate in activities, they interface with the local community, and it's a very important opportunity to showcase our efforts. You can see the February-March media review, some of the publications or the media outlets. that did feature stories on us were Convention South, DeJour.com, the Boston Globe, SimpleMost.com, 365AtlantaFamily.com, Nashville Lifestyles was really a coastal influence focus, Men's Book Atlanta, talking about the South Walton Beaches Wine and Food Festival, as well as Luxury Magazine. So we will continue to fill the funnel and share those ideas with you more and more as my marketing team has begun. We are now the producers of the Connection e-newsletter to our local community, and more we're providing links to these stories to help share what's happening in the national marketplace and bring a focus on some of the areas that have been successfully promoted. And that would include some of the highlights on the next slide.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
The Boston Globe, that's a positive review, the Waffle House Riviera?
Well, I didn't say that was positive. That was a tough one, and it's kind of interesting. I'm originally from Boston, and he felt that article was very tongue-in-cheek. I can tell you that we had some real concerns about his position and the way he positioned the destination. He thought it was sort of funny to talk about the Riviera aspect versus the Waffle Houses along the coast. He also spent a lot of time in Okaloosa County as well, originally supposed to come exclusively to our destination and wound up staying over in the other county and then coming back for day trips. So we've expressed our concern to that writer as well as our public relations firm so that we don't get into the same boat with that particular writer again. We want to make sure that it's a positive spin and they know exactly how we feel about it. It wasn't a negative review. It was just an oddly written, tongue-in-cheek article that we didn't feel that the adjectives were correctly applied to our destination, and we let him know.
Yeah, Gary, it's funny because I read that article when it came out. It got forwarded to me. I have a brother-in-law that lives up in New York, and he saw it. And we all read it and thought, I don't know, it's almost like for that Northeastern audience with that acerbic wit. I think it probably, it went over well up there. But it was kind of a bit of a backhanded, compliment to it.
I've got a brother-in-law that lives in Boston, but I don't particularly like him.
Maybe I'm not originally from Boston. But it definitely was something that caught our eye and that we addressed.
Yeah.
So.
To dig for it, but there was one in there.
Yeah.
Sure. So some of the media coverage highlights, the real nice positive spins. Du Jour published an article about the most romantic destinations, and really they had the opportunity to head to the Pearl, so that was a wonderful article written about romantic destinations that focused on a South Walton property and experience. 365 Atlanta Family, on the other hand, they focused on a wonderful, gorgeous beach article and epic family fun that took place at the Hilton Sandestin. So that was another opportunity for us to look at the family travel market. And then also on SimpleMost, they talked about South Walton in general and really a jaunt that includes a chain of 16 beaches. So it was more of the branded piece. So we got a nice sampling of mentions in the national media with a lot of different moving parts and pieces that help us to tell the entire story, not just one story. And then I wanted to share with you a few marketing program updates. You'll all recall, perhaps, that Captain Jack Cole had previously presented a marketing opportunity to host a fishing show here in South Walton. And that program was actually not, it was moved forward from this committee. It was not moved forward at the Board of County Commissioners. There were additional program logistics that were asked to be reviewed. And one of those is that more captains be featured in the program. So what we did is we sat down when the vendor came back to us and said, we've got a great idea for a fishing show. We sat down and looked at the opportunities and said, how can we make this work to the best interest of the entire community city here in Walton County. And now we're featuring a show about family fishing activities because we are a family destination. The programming will include multiple captains, not just one. In fact, Mr. Cole will not be part of the sea captain. He will continue to be the host of the program, but we're going to feature other charter captains. We're going to be able to include bed tax collectors, so we'll actually be filming at the location of the bed tax collector front lobby, perhaps, to include signage. So our partners are really getting promoted within the actual filming, the location filming. In addition, we thought it was really important to show a holistic opportunity, so where the focus is being out in the water and fishing and the family activity, we can also kind of step to the side and say, you know, that this is also a great activity for girlfriends, weekends. Other niches within our overall family brand will be featured, and our partners will be featured. So not just the lodging industry, but we will be extending opportunities for folks in the recreational area, for restaurants, for different activities, events over the summer that while we're filming, and we'll be filming starting in June and rolling that through in October. So we wanted to let you know that this was approved by the Board of County Commissioners recently and that this programming is moving forward. You'll see us extend information in our community communications, and we may be reaching out to some of you who fall in these partner categories to see if you would like to join the activities. Any questions about that particular program? All right. We're also stepping up our efforts to look at some of the branded collateral. We've had a very popular beachgoers guide. We also have a partnership piece that we looked at called the Beach Bucket List. And honestly, they were two fabulous pieces that we're looking at marrying so that we have a bigger story to tell in the beach access. And so we're looking at the guide, we're looking at things to see and do around the beach, activities that you can participate in. We're looking at the beach safety program. So we're really trying to create a whole story about this, not just more of a factual brochure, but a bigger bang for our buck. So we're excited about looking at that. We're looking at hiking, we're looking at a biking brochure, we're looking at the meetings market in South Walton, and we'll be moving forward with some additional collateral development. It may not be printed until the upcoming year, but remember that starts in October, so it's just around the corner for us. But in the meantime, we're doing some of the legwork to lay some foundational pieces to look at the understanding of what we have, what holes we need to fill in order to elevate the experience for the visitors. So we will be doing that as well. Another aspect with our collateral production is you're all aware that we have an annual visitor's guide, and that's always a very popular piece. A lot of times in recent years, as digital and social media has become so abundantly used, there was a perception that maybe print is dead. It is not. We get ongoing requests from visitors, and this is proven with our destination marketing partners nationwide, that visitors' guides are still in high demand. We do print a guide. We also post it on our website, so there's a digital version. But what we'd like to do is sort of revisit what the guide is, what the story can, will, and should be, how folks are using this guide so that we make sure that we are staying with trend and actually perhaps setting the trend on where we can take this kind of an informational piece. So we're revisiting the visitor's guide, whether it will be a quarterly piece, maybe it'll have some magazine quality articles. We're looking at it and looking at what it should be. And so we'll keep you posted on that as well. We have a great idea to create a mobile visitor information center. And what this would be is we'll take one of our existing vehicles, so there is not an additional capital outlay, but we will look at one of our additional vehicles. And the thought process is to modify this vehicle to accommodate brochures. And when the vehicle pulls up at perhaps an area event or something that's happening in the Capitol or maybe one of our Target City promotions, that when the vehicle parks, the doors open, we set up visitor information and folks can come and see us. And we will, we're looking at conceptually, it will be a wrapped vehicle and it will have some area personality to it. It might feature a paddleboard on the roof that we use as signage. It might feature sound, the sound of the surf. So we're looking at all those opportunities. We're in a conceptual planning stage right now, but we think it's a great idea to be able to take the story to the visitors. And so as we talk about visitors that are here in Market and don't quite have enough information about us to decide if they might return, there's more to see and do. We want to be able to share that in our local market, but we also recognize we could take the show on the road. So that is another idea that we're kicking around conceptually, and just wanted to share with you some of our thoughts. And the final bullet point I had on this slide has already been taken care of by Downs and St. Germain today. So are there any questions about marketing and communications?
Do you have your mobile visitor center operating now?
We do not. We're still in the concept stage. We'll have to retrofit an existing vehicle, so we're looking at the cost of creating permanent brochure racks, for instance. Then we still have to put the creative messaging on the outside. We're just looking at all the moving parts and pieces, and we're in the initial estimating stage of what something like that might cost to take a standard vehicle and change it into something that's really a spectacular mobile marketing tool.
Will you have that available next meeting?
We will have the cost available, absolutely. We may even have some nice designs for you to take a look at.
Good, thank you.
I think we ought to get a Woody wagon.
That's what I'm thinking. There you
With
go.
a surfboard
We have
on
some
it.
ideas.
Yeah. I could see my telephone ringing in the near future.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, PJ. Brian.
Good afternoon, Chairman, council members. Brian Kellenberg, Director of Beach Operations. I'll be brief. Garbage February, about average. Actually, we're up a little bit from last year. The one spike there is President's Day weekend. We're up a little over 100% from year over year. No real cause for it. We just think we have more visitors here. March 2017, about stable through the month. The spike there in the middle is St. Patrick's Day, right even with last year's garbage. This is beach code enforcement. This is contacts from March. As you can see, our new code enforcement officers have created a significant increase in the number of people we're actually contacting on the beach. The different colors of the pies are the different dispositions of our contact. A few of the next couple of slides here just to give you some ideas of the particular items that we deal with. Glass, year-to-date 2017, 235 contacts. Majority of those ended up in either a verbal warning or a written warning. Very few citations for it. Typically the glass we encounter is visitors to our beach. We're required to give them notice to cure. They typically do. We have a good meeting with them. We stop the activity for the rest of the week for that 7-day visitor. Most of our locals understand glass is not allowed on the beach, so we don't encounter too much of that. Dog contacts from year-to-date 2017. That starts October 1st, of course. 972. As you can see, dogs are fairly popular on our beach. Bonfire contacts, 454. We expect a banner year. Last year there was approximately I think it was around 3,600 bonfires permitted. We actually contact the majority of those. I'd say 85 to 90%. It's big activity over our nighttime code enforcement. This is leave no trace for vendor. Once again, the vendor's doing a pretty good job on picking their stuff up in the evening. This is just miscellaneous beach vendor contacts. Once again, beach vendors are acting pretty good on our beaches now. Beach code enforcement department updates. We have hired one of our new beach code enforcement administrative assistants. Her name is Tricia Goff, and she is learning her duties well and becoming an important part of our team. We have all of our new beach code enforcement officers hired, except for one. We did hire that person, but the fit wasn't there, so we decided to part ways, and we now have an ad out that closes in 2 days, and we'll get that last person on board. All of our vehicles have been purchased, and they have been sent to the outfitter to get all of our peripherals on it. That's done. We should pick them up in the next day or so, and they'll be ready to hit the beach. We also have hired our 2 full-time beach ambassadors, and that is Jessica Hino and Amy Wilkins. And John Callens, our beach ambassador and manager, is getting them trained, and they're out on the beach now, but pretty soon they'll be by themselves and letting everybody know how to play on the beach. All of our ATVs and UTVs are ready. In fact, we're using them right now. Beach code enforcement code revisions. Customary use, as you know, was adopted last June. Effective enforcement date was April 1st. In mid-March, there were a few revisions made to it based on the recommendations of the committee that was stood up. And so far, we haven't had a whole lot of activity with it. Actually, a lot of people inquiring about what exactly is it and how does it affect them. So we expect that activity to ramp up here as we make it through the rest of spring break and certainly when summer starts.
Is there any public awareness?
There is. We
How
are
are people finding out?
through our typical media channels, websites. We're working with PJ on producing new signage for our beach accesses. And so part of the customary use was the onus was on us to make sure that people are aware of it. So in the upcoming near future, we'll use every available media outlet we can to get that message out. As well as, our beach ambassadors will play a big part in that. Beach code enforcement officers, one of our primary duties is education of the public. So, as you know, the signage will be a big effort to get done, but we're working on it and should have it in place by the 1st of summer. Other beach-related code revisions, earlier this year we had made some changes to the waterways and beaches activities. 2254 is general use of the beach with regulated generators, prohibited commercial shovels. That was an attempt to stop hole digging, tent size, and created clear zones for emergency vehicles. 2259, that's our special event section. We revised the fee. Yes, sir?
I'm sorry, I got on 2254, that restricted tent size.
Mm-hmm.
That chapter is for vendors only, or is that for everyone?
No, sir, that actually regulates the general use on the public beaches.
Just
As-
public beaches.
Right. Private property owners don't have quite the same restrictions. 2259, special event section, we revised the fee schedule based on attendance of special events, and we revised the application submittal requirements. Trying to get a better handle on what we allow on the beaches in regards to special events. 2260 is our beach vendor section. We revised the annual permit cost and mirrored much of the same things in 2254 as to equipment. Made a few changes to some vendor zones, just putting in an access aisle and stuff like that. So once again, every year we go back, look at what we have in place and what we had experienced through the year in order to make this code a little better for all concerned. Capital improvement projects, multi-use path renovations, Graydon Beach to Western Lake. If anybody's traveled down there, you've seen that that first phase 1, which is watercolor to the west side of Western Lake, is almost complete. Contractor still has some railing work to do, a little bit of striping, and some landscape work. Also has to pull out the path on the south side of the road down to the entrance to the state park. Phase 2 is the section from Western Lake to Highway 283. As I reported before, it's kind of now broken up into a Phase 2A and 2B. 2A is the parking, right-of-way parking. 2B would be the path. And the reason the path got sectioned out of that is because we had to do some design changes because we could not obtain an easement from the state park system for grading and drainage work. We didn't want to put the path on their land, but we had to do some grading work within their boundary lines. They decided not to allow that, so we've now gone back and working on redesign of it. Right-of-way parking is coming along pretty good. They still have some landscaping to do and some cleanup to do. We expect that to be open for the summer season.
Brian, before you leave that, could I ask a question about the Graydon Beach to Western Lake?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, it's 2 questions. People ask me, and I don't know, I'd like to be able to tell them when they ask me for the 3rd time.
Yes, ma'am.
The first one is, why was the bridge built on the north side instead of the south side?
Okay. I believe that through the design of that process, once again, this was a joint, really it was handled by Public Works, funded by TDC. My understanding is people did not want to mess up the view of the iconic longleaf pines. They felt that bridges would alter that view of the lake. So the path was put on the north side.
Okay, The second question
Hmm?
is the bike path that's now on the south side of the bridge, does that go away?
Yes, ma'am, it will be. It'll be taken up from, if you're familiar where it comes into Watercolor at, I believe, Buttercup Road, first road in from the west. The path will cross back to the south side there. So that path will be taken up from there all the way back to Grayton Beach State Park Entrance Road. And, the reason for the realignment was to get rid of those pinch points where they cross the bridges, where the path is right up against the side of the road.
So we put the bridge on the north side of the road, so now the bikes have to cross 38 twice.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of crossings. Part of our process is, which I'll explain here in the next slide. I'm sorry. I'll get to that in just a minute. 98, 38 West Connector, that's our missing link down in between Scenic Grove Drive and west end of 30A. There's a small section on 30A. Public Works is working on easement and a grant for that section of the path. The path that would actually be along 98 will more than likely be built with the road when that road is widened and reclassified to urban from rural. So make it easier to build. There's just it's hard to build on those double swells. If it's rural, the path has to be so far off the side of the road and it puts it on the back of that double swell. It's just not easy to do. So multi-use path repair and replacement. Richard, we're working on a couple different sections. Right now we have the section from 283 to 83 under design and permit. They're about 60% complete. And widen it, put stripes on it, new signage. And then as we go down the sections, we're going to evaluate our crossings, especially in the section from 393 to the end of west end of 30A. We have a couple crossings there. We'd like to try to get as much on the same side of the road as we can. As you know, it's problematic as you go down 30A because 30A doesn't always go exactly down the middle of the right-of-way.
Right.
So we are aware of those issues. We would have liked to kept it on the north side of the road through Watercolor, but that would have put it right through the middle of Chan's Wine World's tables, and that probably wouldn't have worked out. So, anyway, other part of multi-use path is all of our middle spans have wooden approaches to them, and we do have some that are just all wooden bridges. Working on design and permitting of replacing all those. And so they'll be widened to the 10 foot because our goal is to get all of our path to 10 foot. So we have that under design and permit right now. Both these projects we'll do after the summer season. And also in FY 2017, I have the section from 83 to the Highway 393 that we'll start design and permitting here shortly. And once again, we'll probably wait until after the first year to start it. We'll just have to see how it shakes out. That's a little bit more problematic. It's got more driveways and business crossings in it, which makes design and permitting and construction of those areas tougher. Eventually, we'll get to the area between Eastern Lake, 395 and Eastern Lake, but that's our most busiest section. Path is in probably the worst shape there, but we're tackling them as we can, and hopefully in over a multi-year capital campaign project, we'll have all new bike path. Beach access renovations are NRDA Phase 3 projects. Gulfview and the Edward Lane RBAs are essentially done. They're open for business. We still have some work on the picnic pavilions at Edward Lane. We started the boardwalk at Palms of Dune Allen West. Should be done by July. And then the bay access over on East Mitchell is starting or will start very soon. And it should be done by July as well. Our regional beach access and neighborhood beach access facelifts under design and permit. We expect to issue the RFP for construction, but we won't start those until after the season as well. And we'll do them in lots so that we don't have all of them closed at one time. Dune Allen Regional Beach Access, we're going to start the conceptual design here soon. We've contracted with the company to do that. We'll have a workshop coming up, public workshop coming up. We haven't scheduled it yet, but we will to get some input on that. We want to start with conceptual design instead of just a blank piece of paper. That way people have something to look at, talk about. Graydon Grand, Jay is researching possible design, build, operate long-term lease parking concession with that. He'll have a little bit of update on that later. 38 parking project, finally getting to where we can start construction. We had a little bit of issue with some utility conflicts that arose after we actually completed design. We had to go back and look at that, as well as some parking changes on the 393 section. All that's been done. Amendments have been issued. Bid date is April 11th, and we'll award that bid shortly thereafter and get started on those. Unfortunately, we're going to be doing some of that during the summer, but it's been a long time coming, and we just need to get her done. Beach operations maintenance facility renovation. This is my warehouse where we operate out of. We're converting some of the warehouse space into office space, moving our break room and making it into a permit reception lobby. And we're also adding a pole barn to store some of our equipment under. Last project, our Pilcher Park, which was part of the FDOT bridge project. Ribbon cutting, grand opening on Friday at 10 o'clock. Invite you all to be there. It'll be a fun time. I think we have some dignitaries coming in from the state, governor, and of course the FDOT people. So, any questions?
Did you cover the bathroom facilities at TDC building? Is that still in process?
Talking about our exterior bathroom project that we were going to do?
Yes.
We, after looking at that, we realized that we're running out of space within our regular building. And so Jay and I discussed that we might want to do something a little bit different on that available land on the east side of our parking area. Instead of just doing a single bathroom, we're looking at some different options of maybe adding some conference space or something like that in another standalone building. So Jay actually pulled that off of the out of the system right now, and so I say we're trying to figure out what's the best use of all that property we have over there.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, man. All right, we say the best for last.
Good afternoon at this point. It's been quite a long meeting, so I'll try to be brief. I'm going to come back to the audit update because that's going to be a little bit lengthy. So just real quick, National Tourism Week. We will be sponsoring the Chamber's Power of Business Luncheon on May 10th at 11:30. And obviously all of you are welcome to attend. You're invited. So we'll be getting that out shortly. We don't have a place yet, so that's why we haven't sent anything out. But if you want to kind of save the date, it's May 10th at 11:30. We'll be having a keynote speaker, Scott Bacon, who's Vice President of Development with Miles Partnership, and he will be presenting some key findings from the State of the American Traveler report that they do, and basically it offers an in-depth look at American leisure travelers, delves into behaviors and perceptions of those travelers, including leisure travel sentiment, travel expectations, travel planning resources. So it's really great. It's an in-depth report, so it'd be really nice to have somebody from Miles come in and present that. I think it's very relevant, obviously, for Tourism Week. So we're excited about that. FY18 budget, that is due to OMB by April 13th. So we are in the progress of putting that together. All departments are working on that, and they will have that to both me and Jason later this week. We have actually a meeting later on this afternoon to discuss that. So what we'll do is we'll present that to OMB by the 13th, and then we'll be scheduling some meetings like we did last year, one-on-one with all the council members. We'll review that information, and then we will present that to the council at the June meeting. And then we'll have time for input, and then we can make any suggestions or changes, after that date in June. So it's not, we have actually time, with the spring and the summer. We do start planning way far out. So let's see, what else? The properties update, real quick, we are looking at several properties. It's been a lengthy discussion for probably about 7 months now. We've been kind of doing some due diligence on these properties with title searches and surveys and everything under the sun. But, it's obviously important that we get all this right as we move forward, and we're looking at spending millions of dollars on beach access. So I'll give you a rundown of the properties real quick. Last week at the BCC meeting, the BCC prioritized a list of 3 properties as their top contenders. Seacrest is a piece of property that we're looking at, $6 million for that piece. Seagrove, there's a parcel over there across the street from Cafe 30A, and that's just under $5 million. In Miramar Beach, we're looking at a piece of property across from the Amalfi Coast condominiums, and that's at $1.8 million. There's a couple other pieces that are lower on the priority list. Highland House over by Golf Place is one parcel, and then Oyster Lake Outfall is a couple of parcels there. So with that said, Gary had mentioned earlier about an agenda item on the BCC agenda for next week in regards to reallocating some funds, and I'll kind of explain what that is. So the BCC asked us to identify some of our reserve funds that can be utilized for property purchases, and we've done that. We've worked with OMB and identified about $16 million worth of money that we can use out of reserves for these property purchases. And I can run down a list so that way you can kind of see what money's coming out and what money's remaining in these different pots. So under beach nourishment, we have $10 million available to pull out for the property purchases, which will leave $11 million in beach nourishment. Shoulder season, we have $2.8 million available that we can pull out, and $4 million remain in that account. Emerging markets, we're going to sweep that clean. There's $2.2 million in there. And then admin marketing, there is $1 million available, and that will leave us with $4.8 million. So you can see we're being smart. We're not taking all of our reserves and spending all those dollars on property purchases. So we're leaving some nice pots of money in these different accounts. So are there any questions in regards to the properties or the dollars? No? Gary, you have a question?
Yeah. The biggest concern I have is the beach for nourishment, taking almost half of that money, because it just, I mean, sadly, we're a one-trick pony, tourism, and you get rid of the beaches, you're gonna get rid of 65% of the taxes collected in the county. So we're gonna go from, fat and happy to pretty thin.
Well, we've had some conversations with Taylor Engineering in regards to that, and the dollar amount that we have, we feel pretty comfortable that's a nice cushion for us to be able to take care of our beach accesses if we need to do some repairs to those, and then start the process with beach nourishment should the need arise and be that far where we need to actually do beach renourishment.
Does this help, because I have no clue on this part, does this help the locals' mind set at ease this customary use, or by providing more beach access, or is this going to just
I think it serves at different levels, and obviously I think that is something certainly that it helps with that point that we're providing beach access, and if you go to any of our beach accesses during the peak season, I mean they are packed to capacity. So, obviously, with the limited beach accesses that we do have, and I think with the number of beach accesses that we have, they are limited. So I think it's really prudent that we expand that base where more visitors can get to the beach. I mean, earlier we were looking at research, and what's the number one reason, overwhelmingly, the number one reason why people come in here? Our beaches. So we need to, I think, provide access to the beaches.
Jay?
Yes, sir.
Were you done? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Early on in some of the prior tenures I've served, it was pretty specific what these pennies were allocated to.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't always a lot of deviation. You couldn't just say, well, I'm just going to take $11 million out of this one and put it over here. I'm going to take $5 million and put it over here. Are we just stepping outside of those limitations that have been in place for, 30 years?
No, we are not. So I've had conversations.
You understand my question?
I do.
Okay.
And so I've had conversations with both TDC counsel, with Clay Atkinson, and with county counsel, Mark Davis. And we sat down and we had a meeting and discussed that very issue. And it is something that the BCC can do and take and reallocate those pennies. And so we're tweaking that so we can utilize some of those funds, obviously not all of them, for those purchases. So does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
My only concern would be that the state would come back and say, this is what you've done.
Right.
Or this is what you allocated it for, and now you've reappropriated those funds. We're not going to run into trouble legally with the Attorney General.
Not according to either Clay or Mark. No, sir.
Okay. Because, we call them pennies, but they're really millions and millions of dollars.
Correct,
So-
correct. So, well, and that's why I was very careful and sought the opinion of two legal counsels.
Yeah, the only other observation, I've talked to a number of people, and the Seacrest Beach is really probably one of the top priorities along 30A that needs the most immediate attention.
It is. We have two neighborhood beach accesses. That way we have no regional beach accesses over that way. The sticking point for the commissioners, and I get it, it's well above appraised value. Now, there are some properties over there where the asking prices and the prices that others have gotten for their property is above the appraised value. Then you also have, what people pay their taxes on, so you have that value as well. So there's different things to look at, obviously. So it's a tough call for the commissioners, and, I don't want to be in their seat to have to make that decision.
And I'm not
but-
questioning that.
Yeah.
We trust you all to do
Yeah.
the due diligence that's necessary.
Right.
To get it for the least possible cost that you can. But
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it was clear in everybody's mind that, we're not stepping outside of some bounds, because originally on, that was dedicated money that you just couldn't start swapping around, and
Right.
wasn't aware that there was that kind of leeway.
There is, of course, like I said, and I ran it by both attorneys, because obviously, a lot of times when you ask an attorney, you ask multiples, you get different opinions, but there was a consensus there, so I felt good about that.
How often does that happen?
Okay, a couple things. First of all, how much annually do we contribute back into the reserve? So what can we expect to see going forward, like on this beach nourishment?
Well, I mean,
how much will it build back?
It depends on our budget. So right now, our sales and marketing budget is roughly about $9 million. And then beach operations is about $7 million. And then we have some administrative chart costs in there. So depending on what we have project-wise, and a lot of that depends on what we're doing on the beach operations side of the house and capital projects. So, I mean, we could have as much as, or little, I should say, as $500,000 or as much as $1.5 million. It just kind of depends on how we prioritize those projects and what we want to do. And that's just something that we kind of do internally of, okay, we have these projects. And it's also a matter of what we can get done realistically in a year. I mean, we can make a laundry list of 100 items, and you know what? It's not realistic that we're going to get those items done all in 1 year, nor do we have the funds to do those items. So it's a matter of prioritizing the projects, coming up with the dollars, and then seeing where, this past year, we had a little over $21 million in TDT collections. Right. And just now with the figures I kind of spouted off to you, there's still some dollars there that are going into reserve. So, and then projects, we budget obviously money for projects, and we don't always utilize those. So when that's the case, then those get rolled into reserve. So we have all these different little pockets that kind of get rolled over into reserve. So, like I said, I would think easily $500,000 to $2 million or so a year.
Okay. And then secondly, can you talk about, of these beach access points that you just named, how many of those include parking, and how much parking would you guess?
They all include parking. Parking is obviously a priority, and when we started looking at properties, it really was, we need regional beach access with parking. So we need restrooms, we need parking, and we need the beach itself. And so that's what we've been looking at. And they range in numbers. Most of them are a good, robust number of parking spots, 30, 40. I think one of them had 50 spots in it. So good number of parking spots within each beach access.
Each one of those spots? Really?
Correct.
And all of them have restrooms as well?
They all have restrooms. That's what we're proposing, to have restrooms as well. Correct.
This is just the cost of purchasing the property.
Correct. It's about $500,000 to develop a beach access.
Okay.
So any questions on the property or the funding mechanisms for that?
No, thanks. Thanks for your answer.
Okay. And then, so audit update. So last time I just kind of gave you a brief update that the Auditor General was here at the county and doing an audit. And they have concluded that, and they've issued a report, and it's included in your packets. And so I don't know, in the interest of time, if you want me to read this whole thing, because it kind of goes over the history. or if you just kind of want me to just kind of get to the gist of what they discovered and what their thoughts are on that.
I don't know about anybody else, but I read the whole thing.
Okay.
And I don't know if anybody else did.
Okay.
Bullet point it, whatever you
Okay,
need
well,
to
great,
do.
great. Then
This
just,
isn't really an update though, isn't it? This is from February 7th, and this is really,
this is the Auditor General's findings.
The findings.
So it's kind of, in there, they kind of recap the history, if you will, a little bit.
Did Commissioner Jones respond on February 28th to this? But-
Correct. And so, basically, though, just in a nutshell, so the recommendation from the Auditor General is the BCC should adopt an appropriate methodology and establish written procedures for calculating indirect administrative charges to the TDC. Such charges could be based on a methodology developed in the consult cost allocation plan study and adjusted as necessary, depending on the actual BCC services performed to the TDC.
Right, and in the past, that was about 356, and now it's triple.
Correct. And so they're basing that number off the, I forgot the name of it, the, Jason, what's the name of that? The Maximus study, thank you. The Maximus study. Yeah, I was thinking something else too, that's why I had to ask for clarification. So the Maximus study, and so in that study, that's where they came up with that 937 figure, because when Melissa, OMB Finance Director, when she calculated it, she came with a lower cost.
Much lower cost.
Much lower cost. Yeah, I think in here it states it's like,
And the reason for that was that they were actually double counting certain items. And I don't know all the details, but I know there's people in this room that have more history on it. But
oh, here it is. So it was originally 356,735 was the amount that Melissa came up. And the Maximus study, that is where it came back at that 900K, 937 figure. And so that's the number that they're using. So basically, what the recommendation of the Auditor General is that we need to have a established written policy establishing that methodology used. And so I spoke with Melissa about that, and she said she is in the process of preparing that, and we'll have that for the next meeting for me to share that actual document with you, and then ultimately that will be presented to the BCC for their approval. Now,
But will that, okay, so is that to justify the 937 or the proposed amount that is?
the 937 is the figure that they're using. So, and what they said is that they monitor that, that evaluate that every 3 years.
So in other words, it's gonna be 937 instead of 356.
Yeah, but that's not the right number. That's not the right number.
Is there another place or another location we can get some?
We can certainly have a conversation with finance on the number and the breakdown of the number.
Because there were certain expenses that were accounted double. I don't have all the facts in front of me, but I rest assured that there were certain expenses that the county administration charged for that the TDC was already doing, so it was kind of like double dipping.
Well, can I make a suggestion and see if you're open to it? I'm sorry, Richard, do you need it?
But the audit also found that the clerk of the court was charging the TDC in that collection money for costs associated with the clerk's office that had nothing to do with TDC
Correct.
collections. And
3%, they're holding.
well, the maximum the statute allows is 3%, and that's what they're collecting. They're using 3%.
Right.
And they're not using actual costs. They've been using 3%. So first of all, we should get a refund, which won't happen.
That's how it all started.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Let's see what comes up in June and see what she.
Well,
can-
and I'd like to make a suggestion if Gary's willing to, because, obviously this happened before I started, so I don't have 100% clear picture of this. So I'd like to sit down with you, Gary, if you're okay, and go over that, and then that way I can take some of that and relay that back to finance and have a dialogue with them on that, if you're open to talking to me about that.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
the other thing, if I may, Jay, is maybe on the agenda for our June meeting, and I brought this up at our last meeting, and Mr. Atkinson kind of deferred me and said, we don't want to talk about this until after the audit's done. The audit is now done. Okaloosa County has just switched over to having the Department of Revenue collect the taxes, which costs nothing, as opposed to $937,000. And then they take the bed tax and give it back to Walton County, and they also do the enforcement for collecting from those people that aren't paying. And I've talked to a couple tax collectors in Okaloosa County, and they said it's a piece of cake, fill out one form, mail it in, you're done.
Well, and I will say this, just to kind of supplement what you're saying is, I do know currently the clerk is not collecting from Airbnb participants, and so DOR is. And so that's some revenue that we're leaving on the table, with the current situation with the clerk's office. So,
right. And the other thing is that the Department of Revenue's enforcement is pretty rigid. And does the clerk even have an auditor right now? Joyce Sunday used to do it.
They do. They do some enforcement. Obviously, I think from an enforcement standpoint, there could be pros and cons from both ways. I mean, here you have boots on the ground, so perhaps somebody could even get in their car, go drive by, check something out, or, where if from Tallahassee perspective, are they going to drive over and check things out? So I think there's some pros and cons to that enforcement standpoint, but I have heard that they are more aggressive.
They are.
So
the bottom line is, I'd like to at least put it on the agenda. And Tony, you might correct me and say this is something the BCC ought to be looking at, not the TDC. But we're looking at like $1 million here.
Well, I think the BCC needs to look at it with input from the TDC, and I think Jay and I can meet, and Jay can meet with the other commissioners. But yeah, we're talking about $1 million for costing the TDC, so we need to get it straightened out.
Great.
Anyway, I'd like to at least make the recommendation that we bring it back as an agenda item for June, so that the panel members can all at least stay aware of what's going on. Are you okay with that?
You've just laid out a case. I don't know why we wouldn't do that. It's the enforcement alone would
we'll be happy to put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah.
I think there's a gentleman in the audience that's dying to say something, keeps raising his hand.
We got public comments coming in a minute.
All right, so are there any other questions in regards to the audit? So I'll work with Gary, and if any other council members, have anything that they can share with me, obviously, on this, I'd be happy to sit down with you and talk about that. Like I said, this was a little bit before my time, so I'm kind of a little behind the 8 ball on that, but whatever y'all can do to help me get up to speed, that would be beneficial to me.
And if I get any more information, I'd be happy to share it with you.
Okay.
But I just wanted the entire council to know what knowledge I have and how much this is really costing the TDC. I think it's a pretty serious issue.
It's
And I think it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So, okay, that's good.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Jay.
That's it. Thank you.
Jay.
Thank you.
Teresa? Any public comment?
The person you really need to talk to is Jennifer Vigil. Y'all ought to buy her lunch or whatever, because she can tell you everything that happened during the Maximus study. It started, and I'll give Art full credit, because he was the one that brought it up to TDC, and he forced the hand of the county to send the letter to the auditor on that issue. It started with the clerk charged the 3%, and and kept track of how much they spent. They never spent the whole 3%, but they didn't send it back to the TDT account. They sent it back to the BCC's general fund. So that was the first thing. And then Melissa came out and said, hey, we're going to charge you some stuff, Melissa and the county administrator. We're going to charge you about $400,000. And everybody just went crazy. That was $700,000 that they were going to charge us, and they don't do anything. The double counting, one of the double countings, was they charged us for Mark Davis. But we had our own attorney. We didn't use Mark Davis, but yet we were paying for Mark Davis as part of that administrative cost. And then they said, well, we'll get this Maximus study, except they didn't come and talk to the TDC. They went and talked to Melissa and all the folks up in Defuniak Springs, and they said, well, here's our methodology. We're just going to charge them based on the amount of money that they spend. So if we spend, and we don't even spend it, most of it goes into the reserves, or a lot of it went into the reserves. If you get $20 million, you're going to pay $970,000. But wait, we're only doing X amount of transactions. We have a huge transaction with Zender. We have a huge transaction that we put in reserves and for the beach nourishment. Why are you're not even processing that money? Well, the Maximus study said this was a valid model okay? And we can charge you, just like we're charging Public Works, who orders, 1,800 bolts or whatever, and it just didn't work. It doesn't make any sense. It wasn't fair to the TDC, but it was a way for the county to get $974,000 to offset the cost of their operation, and milk this cash cow just a little bit more. So unfortunately, I won't be here at your June meeting. That might be good news for y'all. I'll be in Ireland. So y'all have fun, but you do need to do what's right with the revenue that bed tax collectors are remitting to you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? I'd like to once again welcome Tricia and Amy and Jessica to the team. And if there's nothing else on the agenda, motion adjourned?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Good to see you.
Great to see you.
It's getting a little more interesting.
That was supposed to be short.
I knew it when I saw transportation on there.
Good to see you. Thank you. Yeah, good to see you. Take care.
It is. It's pretty funny, that's for sure.